clock has spoken. It is 6:30. It is April 19th, 2023 is the year. It's a good thing to remember that sometimes. And I'm going to call this meeting, our regular business meeting, to order. We're going to start off with quick housekeeping because we got a big crowd here tonight. We have two exits, one out that door and one straight through the door you just came in. Don't run through this door or you're just going to die in the closet. That's not where you want to be. We have bathrooms at the ends over here in the corners. There's a button on the wall. You hit the button. I would bring a second person to guard the door with you, because they open automatically. And it's very disturbing when I walk in on Councillor Gordon, washing his hands. But the door will open automatically if someone touches the button. So it's, yeah, you want to bring a second person just to guard the door. There's also an AED over there, water, whatever you need. Okay, we're going to start off with acknowledgement, land acknowledgement. The town of Diamond Valley acknowledges the traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, members Siksika, Kainai, and the Kainai First Nations, the Stoney Nakoda, Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Wesley First Nations, and the Dene of Tsuut'ina First Nations, and the Métis Nation Region 3, and all of those that made Treaty 7 lands their home. Is everyone in this room? All right, before we get to Mr. Simon Bordley, now we'll do Simon first, and then we'll do our addition to the agenda. So, we have a lovely gentleman who came from across the big water just to work in our town. His name is Simon Bordley. He's the officer you'll see back here, the tall one. If you'd stand up there, sir. You can come up here. I'm just going to read this first, and then I'm going to come around and give it to you. So the Alberta Emergency Services Medal honors emergency services personnel who are involved in supporting emergency prevention, preparedness, and response in Alberta, and who are committed to, in this case, 28 years of full service, 12 with the CP or the CPO program in Alberta. So on behalf of Alberta Municipal Affairs, we would like to congratulate Mr. Simon Bordley and honor you by presenting you this lovely medal. And I'm going to come down around front after I finish reading this. In recognition of your service to Albertans, we are proud of you and your accomplishments and the contributions for your many years of service. Thank you for your service to keep our community safe. Your hard work and dedication you have exhibited are outlined, and someone very special has nominated you, and that is greatly appreciated. So, without further ado, I would just say that I've had the honor of meeting you and courtesying to you. I think that Simon is one of the best officers in Alberta. He has come to our community. He's taken over the schoolyards with Matt. The kids love him. We have the bike rodeos, we have barbecues. He keeps these kids laughing, kicking balls, playing basketball. And of course, my daughter actually thinks he's a pretty cool guy, which if you can get a daughter, teenage girl to think that CPO is cool, you've accomplished something right there. So Simon, if you come here, and Council, if you go behind, we're gonna get a nice little photo. I was gonna put a Tim Hortons in there, but for you, right there.
That's great.
Yeah, you're good. Get in there, guys.
One more.
Thank you.
Appreciate your service. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I didn't know I could hug you.
So just to double check, you said I'm better than Matt.
That's fantastic. All right.
Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Simon.
All right. Okay, moving on, we have addition to the agenda. Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Close personnel, section 17.
Wait,
Yes, please and thank you.
the meeting, please.
Yes, sir.
And I do have one, just correction on page 201. The wrong town was mentioned. Let me just get to the page number here, just before we, 201, second paragraph after background. Familiar with the amalgamated town of Black Diamond? I think it should be Diamond Valley. Or maybe I'm wrong.
No idea where you are, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
agree with you.
No, you're correct.
Okay, so second paragraph, this says, should be Diamond Valley. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, that was it. That was housekeeping note.
Excellent. Alrighty, so we have an addition to the agenda. Excellent, all in favor of adoption? And that is carried, thank you. All right, minutes 3.1 for April 5th, 2023. Can I get a motion to adopt those, please? Councilor Cindy. Any errors, omissions, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. 3.2 minutes of the committee council of the whole held April 11th, 2023. Can I get a motion for that? Heather, nice wink.
Oh, sure.
I like that. That was good. Heather gives me that motion. Do I have any errors, omissions, points of clarity? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Question period. Question period is a 15-minute section of time that we give the public to come into council chambers to ask questions for clarity, information, whatever the reason. We don't really care the reason. If you have a question, we want to answer it. You can email, phone, text, talk to a counselor, however you want to submit that question, we will take it. We usually like to have it 10 minutes in advance if possible, so we can give staff time to find some details if there's a detailed question. I don't know, Mr. Parsons, did you want to pose a question tonight and catch us on the fly?
Fine so far.
Okay, all good. Mr. Patience, have we received any questions by email, text?
No, Mary, we have not.
All right, excellent. In that case, we shall move on from question period. Question? No. Oh, okay. Very well. Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, statutory hearings. We have none. But delegations, boy, are we busy. I think that's why Dave's here. 6.1, Okotoks Curling Club. Oh, Oil Fields Curling Club. Did I say Okotoks? That's because I was in meetings in Okotoks all day. They actually paid me to say that. They wanted to get a little big in there. That's the talk. Like, some big people on this. Yeah, I'm not as big as you guys. I've seen that, don't I? Well, I think, to be honest, it's fair. Okotoks may have had an Olympian, but we had a world champion come from our club, didn't we?
Not maybe checking.
Not you, but the young folks.
Maybe.
They were all over the world. Pretty good.
They've had
Okay.
very successful people come.
I think so. Okay, I'm gonna turn the floor over to you guys. Run it however you wish. And I'm sure there's gonna be lots of questions up here afterwards, so feel free. And we can keep the screen rolling with information up here and up here for the public, so all good. The floor is yours.
Right on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to introduce the table here. First, we got John Dan, who was a past president of the Curling Club. Second, we have Bob Jackson, who is the webmaster slash photographer slash Twitter guy slash whatever you want to call him, but he's and then Tim Tomayer, who's the current president of the club, and then myself, Neil Weens, who's the actual vice president of the club. I'd like to first start off with by actually suggesting that in behind the oil fields school, there happens to be an arena rink, which I think most of you guys know. And in behind that is actually the curling club, for anybody who doesn't actually know here. So it's kind of funny because the lady right behind us, who was the constable's wife, actually didn't know there was a curling club. So, which is, I think, one of the biggest problems that we have had over the years is nobody actually does understand. I've had so many hockey parents that come in from Okotoks over the years and say, there's a curling club here. And that's what we get, right? So ultimately, I think that's the number one thing. We got to get a little more exposure and then things can start happening that much better, right? So get a little history on the curling club itself. So the existing facility, which is attached to the rink, kind of attached to the rink, was actually built by volunteers and through fundraising, through, bag stores, bag steel borrow from, locals and everything else. And by the end of it, there was about $1.5 million between all the renovations that we've done, throughout the 27 years of it being there, plus that. And, all essentially donated by the Okotoks, or by the Okotoks. Now you got me on the Okotoks Curling Club slash locals that have actually funded this. So that was great. It all worked out well. We had this fancy little spot. But over the years, the dollar rental that came with the scenario, which is what the actual lease deal was over that time, was very good for the very beginning, but it's like anything else. You start to have things that start to come and go, and roofs need to be repaired, things need to be repaired. I would actually suggest that this curling club's done a great job over the years on ensuring that we haven't had to be in the council chambers before. It's been 27 years of absolutely nobody sitting here saying, hey, thou shalt help. And that's not why we're here today. It's just a matter of, hey, we need some exposure. How do we actually change this dollar lease into something that actually makes sense in a way? So that's the background of the curling club. Membership. This isn't just for 10 people. And maybe it was almost through COVID, but we actually kept it going fairly well through that time. But what happened here is, over the years, we've actually gained a great number of members, and our existing membership actually sits at, what is it, Bob?
143.
143. I'm blind, I can't see out there that much. So 143, and majority, well, actually over half of it being not seniors, which is a great deal. So we're starting to bring in way more juniors as we go on. The population of the curling, or the demographic of the curling club has come down and is becoming a more and more viable club as we get going. So that's the membership. Out of this, I mean, we used to have a curling club manager that actually managed the facility over all the years. And when COVID hit, of course, then everything was gone and there's so much uncertainty. So over the last 2.5, well, actually over the last 3 seasons, we've taken it upon ourselves to manage the whole rink, cut costs as much as we can to keep everything going, and so on and so forth. So that's worked out well. Finally, it was how many years? There was 1 year off with the schools, right?
Through COVID, we had 5 weeks before COVID shut us down in fall of 2020.
Yeah.
I know it's a school curling. We had 1 week of school curling, I think, and then everything was shut down.
Yeah. So ultimately, we had try and get the schools going. You get them all rocking and rolling, and what happens is we shut it down. So it's been a great testament to the folks in the curling club who've really promoted the junior program. I mean, we had 20 juniors this year, and we all starting to watch these grand slams of curling and everything, and people are getting more and more interested versus disinterested, which is a great thing. I'd like to point out, if you have any questions as I'm babbling along, please stop me and let me know. So the next piece, we hit this one. The real good about this so far is we have been increasing. I mean, we in COVID, we're down to just over 100 and back up to 143 right now. And I think our overall highest number over this whole thing, probably only 165 or so, a bunch of years back. So it is on the increase. We've been promoting the whole end of things. We've increased membership fees, and the membership, although they grumble a little bit, understands that inflation is existent and things rise, right? So we've managed to do that. The lounge has been run with volunteers and has done well over these years. Thank goodness curlers know how to actually walk an odd ale. So it's been good. So we're able to keep the lights on and actually have a lot of fun with that end of things too. And finally, a lot of the things that we've done, and in particular, John and Bob in here, is they've really searched out the world of grants. So it's not like we're sitting on our hands here. I mean, we're going after all the grants we can. We've pulled off over $7,500 worth of them this last year. And as far as nonprofit organizations go after pretty much anything that we can. I think that's where then, and I'll get into it here a little bit later, but that's where the partnership with the town and how do we actually access grants. We can access the nonprofit side. You guys can access the municipal side. That's kind of, I think, one of the main partnerships we got to look at. Next, this is where things get a little interesting. As I started in the beginning here, 27 years, a building has been maintained fairly well. I mean, we've done a great job of doing that. Doesn't leak a whole bunch. Actually, it hardly leaks at all. And the facility has been maintained throughout this whole time through our own donations and also time and effort. Biggest problem that exists is like anything else, is once you hit a longevity piece, 25 years and up, something that the curling club can't absorb, even through all the fundraising stuff, is a catastrophic capital item. And that would include something like a ice plant or a leaky roof that is overall, or, you know, just basically any major plumbing issues. You know what I'm talking about when it comes to catastrophic. So it's something that we can absorb and then physically keep going. So that's where the bad comes in here. So finally, I mean, that's where we have to go. So the ask on this is, you know, as bluntly as I can put it, it's on your guys' balance sheet. And when I actually became vice president of this thing, what it would have been about 2 years ago, I do have, you know, a little bit of entrepreneurship in my back pocket over the years. And first thing I'm looking after the P&L, I said, where's the balance sheet? And then so we bring it, and our balance sheet has curling rocks on it and a couple of bottles of gin somewhere, right? And going, well, isn't the building ours? You know, according to everything that I've heard over the years and all these rumors, and then going, well, it would be on the balance sheet. And that's where we dug in a whole bunch deeper into this thing and going, well, no, it's actually not. You know, and it's a lot easier to do a capital project if I can leverage that. I can't do a capital project if it's not money. And hopefully that makes some sense. So ultimately, I mean, what we're looking at is potential, and we're, you know, nothing has to be overnight on this. I mean, the main thing is really the ice plant, and it's running well and it's running right now. But if it all of a sudden dies tomorrow, we can't pay for it. Timing wise, it was actually pretty good now that the town is actually looking for, you know, the grants of redoing the ice plant in the arena. Les had mentioned the Scott Seaman unit then would physically potentially be available on this. And, you know, John and I went and looked at it the other day, and I think it would be a real good fit. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but it would potentially end up being a really good fit as something that we could utilize as an existing town asset over into there. Some retrofits, obviously, but that's what we'd have to do. So that would be the number one. Accessibility, we have stairs. I mean, we'll go into a few pictures. I may as well just keep going here with this instead of sitting on this. So there's the ice plant. For those of you, the one is the Scott Seaman side. That's just the actual compression piece. The ice plant is right behind it. So if you actually go into this and take a look at the outdoor rink out there, you'll see on the east side of the outdoor rink, on the southeast side of it, there is a fenced in area, which is the actual existing ice plant. It's not very old, so I think it would be very efficient, work well. Improve accessibility. This is what I'm talking about here. This is our entrance to the facility on the one picture. The other one is that tight little access up into the lounge. We obviously like to try and adjust that over time. And then the rest of it is just trying to get in and out of the curling ring itself. So, you know, it's 2-3 steps, but that's a heck of a time when you're trying to be accessible. Next one, lounge upgrade. And this ties into a couple scenarios. So I'm always one that actually likes to try and come up with some solutions. If they're going to come in somewhere, it's not just, hey, here's the problems, this sucks, right? Let's come up with a few solutions at the end of the day. And one of the solutions that will get into this is the lounge access. And, you know, hearing from the town, the workers over time, and being a hockey player over time, I mean, you're not to be having alcoholic beverages in the hockey rink. And it makes sense, because, you know, hockey parents are crazy, right? So ultimately, you can't be doing this. So ultimately, one of the suggestions we have is we have this lounge that the club put up, what was it, how many years ago now?
2004.
Yeah. So 2004, we actually put the lounge up there, and it is a real nice spot, but at the time it's aged. You know, you have, the chairs, which, publicly, I mean, not publicly, but I'm taking them actually over to a Colony that I deal with, and, they're gonna redo them, so that's not a problem, it's not a capital thing, that's just what it is. But you gotta, you know, we can't donate all of our stuff all the time, so like the floors need to be redone. The bathrooms have some issues as time goes on with plumbing, and we just need to upgrade that whole side of it. Where I'm coming at with the solution on this is way back in the day, they actually were quite actually smart enough to cut in windows, potentially into the arena. So sitting across there, you're actually almost at center ice. If you're sitting in that lounge on that picture. So where the TVs are in that picture, you notice those. So those TVs are is actually, there'd be potential to cut 2 holes in the wall, put in windows, and you have a viewing access to the whole arena ring.
It's on the next slide.
Box seats.
No, so you got box seats, exactly. So grandma and grandpa can quit, you know, hang out up there and do whatever. I mean, we have a cold rink and we all know that. So, you know, get up there and warm yourselves up for a few minutes while you're watching your kids or the grandkids. So that would be one of the things we suggest. And, you know, ultimately too, I talked to Les last year actually on this, and you'll see the improved parking lot, which on the one side where the rink is, there's a couple feet of pavement. And then on this side is a holy pothole mess, right? So we could do that over time, but what Les was actually suggesting, and I quite agreed and made some real good points, and he's not even here to defend himself, so I'll throw him under the bus a little. But it's one of those sides where you see the curling rink access there. And then on the other side, you have the actual, well, the fire escape and everything for the, and the backdoor entrance for the rink. So the suggestion or potential suggestion was to actually have a joint entrance coming into this where it sits as a double wide and you can both come in the east side. People would then know the curling rink's there. You take everybody out of that main area of the rink where we're all crowded when you get in and getting out at the end of the day and actually shove them into this. So it's potential. It needs to get looked at, but that's down the road, right? It's something to start thinking. Right. Finally, the improved parking lot. What's next on this one? Making it better for all. So part of what I just mentioned on the, you know, about the actual lounge access, the shared entrance. You know, these are the things that I think we can actually do as a joint side of it all, especially if we get some funding. And really start engineering the thought process and really getting our minds wrapped around the fact that that building is in fact Diamond Valley's, and both buildings are Diamond Valley's, and hey, let's integrate them so we actually understand they are. That's about it. I'm not gonna spend a whole bunch of time here on trying to figure things, but you know, the other things that we're after on the ask, which I forgot to mention here, is when we're, you know, well, there's another one too. So if you're installing concrete floor, right now it's a sand floor. And so it's kind of like putting greens in Saskatchewan. Basically running the line, but we're not on a putting green anymore. So in the case of this, I mean, we got a huge following of pickleball across the area. I think there's kind of a lack of real good community halls in this town. This might function because it has allowance to something that's potential. So if you put in a concrete floor, suddenly we have a dual purpose building that during the summer we can utilize on that end. Yeah, just more suggestions on potential thoughts. Finally, I think what the main thing that we're asking is, can the town take over and this isn't for today, this is something to think about, and this is the conversation. Can the town take over the capital funding of this facility and also its maintenance? That's number one. Number two is the instability of the world of utilities is going to end up potentially killing us. Having the town, which does a great job of actually hedging your utilities and ensuring that, can basically take about a little bit of the whoop out of things. So we can, say, hey, let's have a top level of utility rate. In exchange, we're more than willing to actually pay a physical rental fee, understanding we know that that's an operating site. Background on this thing too, both Okotoks and High River have that where the town runs the facilities. Maybe not on the ice, but they run the actual facilities as far as capital costs and maintenance. And both clubs actually just pay a rental fee. So this isn't new precedent, just trying to figure out how we do this as we move forward. So the end, that's about it, unless these gentlemen want to add a couple things.
Well, we go to questions. I think we're gonna get some more, just a quick one. Right now, are you paying your own utilities or are you under the hedged rates of the town?
No, we're paying 100% of the utilities. We do get, the town pays our electricity, flips us the bill, I'm including 100%.
Okay, that was my first one.
Natural gas, we're on our own.
Second question. With the capital costs, because I know you guys have done the background anyway, I helped, Mike Williams, fundraise back in the day for the ice plant. So I know those are like 75 to $100,000. But what's your kind of right now ballpark on what the next 5 years is probably gonna look to absorb?
Essentially just the ice plant and.
I mean,
So, well, if we wanted to do concrete, if we wanted to do
Yes.
upgrade. it,
Yeah, so
like-
ballpark, you'd probably be looking at 250,000 probably over the next few years.
Okay.
I mean, the lounge is a great scenario where you can still a nonprofit and if all of a sudden things are turning around, we, for some reason, our efforts have actually hit 200 people next year. We're not against helping ensuring that the lounge actually gets redone and things like that. I mean, we'll reinvest all the money back in, so it's not like we're just going, okay, here you go. Thank
We
you.
can get grants for the lounge and the chairs and some of the floors, but. I think it's more about the capital things like if the plant goes, the plant, like you say, we changed the plant. We didn't change a plant, we changed.
Yeah.
And it's a compressor, we built the compressor.
Yeah.
And that last one we did was a $25,000 grant.
Yeah.
I think we do,
Legacy Coast Gas.
if we do have to do some work, with some engineering, and that's where they get to come up with a plan.
Yeah.
Main thing I would think we're all in agreement with is like, saying if there's something catastrophic. We go to fire for a plant this fall and it doesn't go, we need to get it going right away to salvage the season. And, just have a plan where the town can help us, well, no matter what, like, whether it's you, shared costs, whatever. But have a plan in place that could be executed, because it'll have to happen quickly. It can't. One of the reasons that we have a smaller membership is that when the old Curling Rink Club closed, which is up. The apartments are like ours, Tim Hortons. There was about a 4 or 5 year gap between there and restarting, and we lost pretty much all of our membership. Like realistically, we lost. I wasn't around for it, but membership went from over 600 down to where we are now. So it's very important to not have a big gap between if the Curling Rink shut down for 2 years, you start from zero. That's more or less.
Questions, council? Sorry for cutting off. Cindy first.
Yeah, do you guys track your membership as far as who's from town and who's from Foothills County?
Yes.
Okay, so you can go on that.
Yeah, and there's quite a number from Foothills County. We're drawing people from First Millerville, we're up near Pritis, all through and around Gila and I are both from Foothills County.
We even have a few people from Okotoks.
Probably, we've got half a dozen people or more, we'll probably run down a dozen. Have here from Okotoks.
Well, just comment, I'm actually, if you listen to the news today, they're talking about the pickleball issues outside of Okotoks. So
Oh, there you go.
having an indoor option, let's just skip the whole mess of outdoor pickleball and on indoor. So
That's fun.
that was a good sell on. It was a very
Yeah,
good.
it wasn't even planted.
That was a great presentation.
Have the ability to run indoor markets.
Yeah, that's a very good.
Rent it out for a wedding. I know what.
Can I make another comment on the ice plant?
Absolutely.
It's important to get it going when we make the ice. But it's really scary if we get the ice all in, which costs us about 40% of our costs to put the ice in, and then something happens to the ice plant in the season. And if anything happens and we can't repair it right away and it takes the ice out, that's a killer, right? So it's a 27-year-old ice plant for the most part, so. We should live in a world, probably. So.
Sounds good.
This is more directed to administration, if I may. we've had some discussion about changing the ice plan for the rink, correct? Has the feasibility study included a complete ice plan that handles both pads? Are we working on that? Or have we just kind of sat back and let it slide?
Are you asking about the current and does it?
Well,
does
if
the
we're gonna,
current-
my thought is this, if we're gonna assume the maintenance and the building and all of this, why don't we look at it as one unit instead of two? Because it's the town's property. So if we're gonna be looking ahead to change the ice plan for one, why not we incorporate it and do it with both? I'm sure there'll be cost savings with that. That's my thought.
I'll divert to Craig.
Yeah, through the chair. Thank you, Councillor Gordon. It's a great question. And until recently, we were unaware of the needs. About 2-3 weeks ago, we had a meeting at the Curling Club to discuss some of those options. Feasibility as far as joining the curling, that hasn't been done, but I think it's a great option that we should review.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
So, I'm a Curling Club member, so it's close to my heart. The town is in the possession of about a $3.4 million capital asset that, this club basically has done on their own. The town gave us a lease and we paid $1 a year on that, but it's,
Just for the land.
just, yeah, for the land too, of course, that's sitting on that. I was part of the fundraising committee that built the curling rink. I was also part of the fundraising committee, the regional fundraising committee that built the Oilfields Arena. Initially, it was going to be both that were kind of combined. And when they're talking about the joint access area, initially that was the plan, was to have a joint access area. Because of costs and all different things, that didn't happen. Our club does a really great job fundraising, always has done. I was lucky enough to go around Alberta a little bit this year with my grandson who played a little hockey. And I noticed that a lot of these curling rink hockey rinks that are joined together, that there's joint fundraising that goes on, community fundraising. And boy, I'd like to see the community jump in and start participating in stuff like this again. That was a big effort to get the curling rink built, and it was a big effort by the communities of Curtis, Millerville, Black Diamond, Turner Valley, the Foothills, same as the arena. That was a regional fundraising committee, and their only focus was that. It wasn't a Parks and Recs committee. It wasn't that. It was them, and they did a bulk of the fundraising with a small amount of money came from each town. I think for the arena, the town of Turner Valley at the time gave, which was a lot of money back then, because that was 30 years ago, it was $110,000. So, for us to own a facility like this that's attached to another facility that probably a $5 million asset that, we need to take care of them, and having them turn as multi-use is really important. So I am not just a member of the curling club, but I have an interest in the hockey club, and I have an interest in seeing these going forward. And with the capital, we need to support the clubs, both clubs. And so I'm strongly supporting this and hope that we can move forward with entering into some kind of new lease agreement and start working together on some of these capital projects. I also know that those are cut. The plans were that those arena windows, viewing windows, were cut into that building. There's about this much of a gap between them, so it might be a little bit to do it, but I've gone to lots of arenas where the viewing area is from the curling club, and that's another thing that gives revenue. Hockey players, etc., can go up and have their drinks up there.
If I can comment on Heather's note about fundraising. I did some research and the fundraising was above $700,000. I think the curlers at the time were very instrumental in getting that building built at all.
Excellent. Great, Councillor Cook.
It was a really good presentation. And when you started, we're like, boy, we're gonna have to set aside just 2 hours to hash this out and figure out what's to be done. And I agree with everything that's been said down the table. Also brought me back to my time in Northern Alberta, where every single little town revolved around curling.
It's getting harder to keep going.
Little curling rink on the prairie.
It does, you know, it's not just the low curling rink. There's been a failure of some major curling rinks over the last few years. They're dying out all over the place. So, and what we're trying to do is not become one of, add to that statistic.
Well, what I love about it is we're physically gaining that momentum in the junior side. So way more than the rest of the clubs, other than Oak.
So another interesting number is, you look at the number of, for all of our 143 members, the number of games they individually play is 4,000 games this season. So think of that's 4,000 2 to 3 hour outings for exercise and so socializing. So it's a lot.
I'm just gonna go up to Hazel, just in case. Hazel, want to forget you. We see you up in the corner there, so I'm just gonna ask you if you want to make a comment, and then I'll come back to the table.
No, I have to agree with what Veronica said, is that there's been a lot of really good conversations, and no, we don't want to see the curling rink leave our community. I would like to know, has there been any conversations with Foothills County? I know this is fairly early on in considering some of these employment improvements.
Answer is no, just a plain break of no. We're gonna go to
Totally
Brendan.
understand that.
Yeah, we'll go to Brendan first.
Yeah,
and we'll go to-
There's a follow-up she can have for sure.
For Hazel, so as we know that we have to enter into the
I see it.
ICFs, and that would be a conversation that would be had with Foothills County. The curling club, the arena, the swimming pool, all of those things would come into play when we look at those.
Thanks, Heather, for the clarification.
Good point, Heather. Deputy Mayor, wrap up.
Yeah, wrap it up. I just want to thank you guys for coming in. It was a great presentation. Definitely brought a lot of things that I was unaware of to the forefront. I'm looking forward to getting a feasibility study done so that we can look at the numbers, because as you know, we are pursuing a new ice plant for the rink, and it makes complete sense. I think to most of us that we look at doing a joint partnership there. My daughter curls at the school she goes over. She loves it every single year. I spent about 6 or 7 years in high school curling. I loved it. I've got a lot of nostalgic feelings when I go in there. Well, when I have time, jeez, find me some time. 2 kids and council and teaching. But I would love to join. But there are no doubt some things that we need to get done. There's a clear disparity. I drop my daughter off at the before and after school club, and I drive through the dirt parking lot onto the pavement in the middle of winter after a snowstorm. The rink is plowed and the curling rink is not plowed. And I'm like, you know, I sit on council and I'm like, why are these things not being done at the same time? So those are some of the smaller things that we certainly need to look at, just to, again, for that image. We want people to look at it as equal partners. And thank you again. I look forward to moving ahead with some of this and seeing where we can help out.
Great.
If I may ask a question through the chair, do you have a set of financial statements that you could share with us?
Yes.
It would just give administration some visibility over the financial statements.
Years would you like us to go back?
I would say probably just go back 3 years is fine.
Okay.
Right,
That would be great. Thank you.
Gentlemen, you heard full support from 7 councillors up here. We have a public works manager who nods his head at everything you said. And every recommendation that came out of our mouths, he agrees with. He agrees with you. Our administration is on board. It only makes sense that we will take ownership of a capital asset that we have on our books. Volunteers, as you know, are the lifeblood of the community, and we're going to support them. So really great presentation. Councillor Haldane, do we want a motion?
Well, I just wondered
Yeah.
what administration needs from us. Are we just at the stage you guys need to do work? My other idea was an ad hoc committee, or, so that we can find it, council and.
There's a few different elements there, so.
But I don't know if you're there yet. So do you guys want to take it away for a while and then look at a committee?
Nick has come.
If I may through the chair, thank you, Councilor Holliday, for that question. In our meeting, we certainly have pledged that we would continue to support the members and the executive and work with them on short-term opportunities. So for example, if they need support on any kind of grants that they might be applying for that would be within their scope, then we would be happy to help them through that process. In the meantime, take another look at the feasibility study that's going on for the rink, see what we currently are facing around some of those challenges in terms of what I know Les Quinton has shared with me, and then just keep in touch. So if we can form that kind of a partnership at the moment, early days, between administration and the executive, that would be the first step, and then take back a report to council for consideration. I know that we're starting capital review of capital budgets, and as such, it can certainly be part of that initial discussion, but we're really happy to continue working with you.
Heather and then Craig, and then have you.
Can I, to that, through the chair, Minette, I'd like to have administration dig into a new lease agreement. Please.
So there's a motion.
Yeah.
We can definitely do that. Craig, this question is straight for you in terms of working some capital project numbers into this budget and ensuring that by next season, we have something in place for backups. With this feasibility study.
Yes, through the chair, thank you. I will work closely with Les and Monique to identify what the requirements and needs will be for that transplant or inclusion with the new ice plant. So we'll do that feasibility. Try and do that quickly, so not to hold up the current process. I know we're anxious to see that, assuming we receive the approval for grant funding for that ice plant, I'm certain that we'd be anxious to see that move forward quickly. So I don't want to delay Monique or Les's process at all. It's a little outside of my scope at the moment because recreation isn't under my umbrella, but I will work closely to assist. And I would like to add, I agree. I think it's a great initiative. I've been to your club. It's maintains something. So I see lots of new potential. Renovating that building will generate new interest and new membership, and not just for curling, but I can see that for the hockey as well as just special event opportunities and rental spaces. So I see this as an overall benefit for the municipal.
Excellent. You're released.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Great presentation.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, so we're gonna take one motion from Heather.
Yeah.
And it's straight up for lease agreement. Is that something that can be?
They can get that. I think they're already working on it. I think so.
Well, the can
And
do
then
it
all
one
from
to
together.
just say.
Just feasibility study.
Yeah. Lease agreement. Lease agreement. Oh.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna take a motion from Heather.
The council direct administration to work with the Oilfield Curling Club to enter into a lease agreement for the next season, starting likely October 2023. And that the capital projects including the ice plant upgrade be included.
That's a
I'm not gonna word it.
Yeah, I break that up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the lease agreement and that the capital projects that administration work with the curling club on the ice plant, potential engineering for the ice plant, as well as future capital projects moving forward. Well,
You wanted to.
there's two motions, sorry, the first motion will be the least.
First one's the lease and stop.
Mr.
Just
Mayor,
enter new.
do we need one as well on the operating side of things? Because they're asking us to take over the utilities
That's a
and
lease
maintenance. That's a lease agreement.
Yeah, if I might, you might want to have your administration put some numbers together before you start making commitments to
Yeah.
my thoughts on it, so you don't know what you're dealing with yet, right? So
Mhm.
I think it would be
Okay.
fair to allow Corinne and her staff to
To review the numbers.
review the
Working, yeah.
financial statements and, yeah, put a plan together for council. That makes sense?
And if I may, through the chair, I would like the opportunity to even talk with Okotoks and Highbury and see how their agreements are designed and see if there's something that we could do which is similar. So it might give us a bit of a starting point. As we go into maybe negotiate with them.
Yeah, so her motion to work on lease,
for
exactly, we
sure.
need to get moving in that direction. Cause it'll come back. So, with those numbers. Okay, so just lease agreement up for vote, all in favor? Thank you.
Make sure Hazel's a yes as well.
Oh, thank you, Hazel, sorry. Remember to look up there. Now, capital. So. We can just leave it as investigate the capital costs and return it to council. Or add it to this year's project in terms of getting.
So are we including capital and feasibility? Those two are,
Well, I think feasibility should be built into, if we're gonna work on the rink now, and we're buying a new system, it's gonna be $1 million, and we sure as heck better. You know,
Which is
it's
looking for
1.2 and we get everything.
Yeah.
That's really what we need to know.
Yeah.
Like, it's our facility.
Okay.
Right? It's on our books, so we should be taking care of it.
Yeah.
That's, I
I'm
think
with you.
everybody agrees.
I just want to be clear on,
Yeah,
we're gonna,
we should.
Okay.
I'm gonna go to Ron.
Yeah.
Question about feasibility. Are we asking the engineering company that put together the quote to add to it and include? Just say that.
That would make sense to me. Cindy?
From what I remember when Les came and presented to us, he said it couldn't be included on the exact same system because of building size.
he said they'd have to build a thing in the back.
Yeah, there was some logistics that made it harder, but he did say that the current one, because we have two pieces and one is newer than the other, and the newer one could be taken out and used over there. So it's all part of the same project. We just have to work jointly together and figure out the money. So I say just keep it an easy motion, just say, bring us information during the capital budget about the ice plant upgrade. And then we'll go from there.
Great. Motion.
Yeah, through the chair, just a comment. I wish I knew more. I've not been part of the rink and its operation, so I don't know the condition or what those plants, how compatible they are together. I would assume that they're pretty much the same in a lot of respect. I know the capacity for the rink is larger than the capacity cooling plant for the curling rink, so it would probably serve them well. But the buildings are on the same footprint. However, the location of the current ice plants does pose an issue with that new ice plant being installed. Like Councillor Holiday indicated, it does sound like a new building would need to be erected somewhere central to both rinks or both surfaces, so that plant would be efficient. So I know a feasibility study will identify those things and whether the current sizing of the requested ice plant is sufficient for both, or technically all three surfaces.
Yeah. Let's keep it broad, keep it simple.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you want me to make that motion now? To bring back information on the ice plant and feasibility of the 2023 capital budget.
Easy peasy. Good. All in favor? Hazel's in. That is carried.
That third one, if I could.
Yes.
So like, to include the capital, like in the 10-year capital plan,
Yeah.
like the parking lot and the windows and the
Yeah.
joint, like if we could have that, those suggestions included in our 10-year capital plan, that would be really great. So I would make motion, that admin start the process of including in our 10-year capital plan, the capital projects for the oil fields curling rink, and the joint parking lot.
It's all over. So,
Well, the oil fields arena, trust me, uses that parking lot just as much or more than we do.
well, I think that's a great motion. It puts it on our ownership and puts it in where it belongs and makes it clear. Comment from.
Yeah, just a quick comment on that motion. I fully support it. I want to make clear that we are very thankful for the curling club with your maintenance and upkeep of that building. It's a town asset that's been under question for how many years? And you've taken the leadership on that. Thank you very much. It's the town's responsibility and I appreciate your work. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
That being said, all in favor? I see you, Hazel. Good job. That is carried. Okay, we're all done on the curling rink. Well, that was only 2 hours. Let's take a half-hour bio break, shall we? Why don't we go with auditors, 6.2?
Understanding.
Yeah, you bet. Sean, do you want to bring your team down to the hot chair?
Center, thank you, Mayor.
You bet. M&E. And Sean, I'm gonna have you introduce your team, and we're gonna do, I understand we're gonna do Turner Valley first, and then we'll move into Black Diamond after. Great.
Great, thank you.
Good.
Some of you I know, some of you I've met your names now, so I appreciate that. I'm Sean Kelly. Partner with MNP. I've been the auditor with the town of Turner Valley for, I don't know, half a dozen years anyway. And this is Cameron LaRock. He's my senior manager. He's worked with me not near long enough, but 5 years. So okay. Cameron and I work together on a number of engagements. He does everything I smile. Anyway, so our point, and you're right, we the auditors of the town of Turner Valley for your year ended December 31, 2022. So our job is we'll just kind of report to you some of the things that we need to report as auditors to the council. And then consistent with prior years, we'll touch on a few of the financial highlights for council members. So obviously you finished the audit, we're ready to sign off upon your review and approval of the statements. And our opinion will be that the is considered an unmodified opinion, which is you modify that, sorry. It's an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that you can get on an audit report. Right, so it's also known as a clean audit opinion. Few of the matters that we will confirm to you throughout the process here, that the audit service plan that would have been contributed or provided through your CAO and your finance team. So we set a plan, auditors are famous for this. We set a plan, follow the plan, and then we report to you that the plan that we gave you, we followed. Plan what to do what you planned, and if you come across something you don't know about, well, you plan what to do and do what you planned. So I'm confirming that we have followed that our audit service plan to you. During the audit, there were nothing came to our attention that caused any significant difficulties. Corinne and the finance team have done a very good job putting things together for us and working with us, and we really appreciated that. So no limitations were placed on the work that we were doing or the information that we needed to form our audit opinion. Auditors are not focused on, but we are cognizant of, we're aware of if anything comes to our attention that is fraudulent or misleading, and confirming to you that nothing of that nature came to our attention during the audit. Confirming as well to you that the town is required to comply with laws and regulations, which I realize you know, and this is where the double negative, we confirm that nothing came to our attention. Well, it's a double negative that messes me up every time. I'm just gonna tell you, you comply with your laws and regs, okay? But the auditor side of it is nothing came to our attention that was suggested any non-compliance with law, right? Which really means we didn't see anything, you're good, yeah. And yes, the glasses thing, it comes with experience.
Small numbers.
Yeah. Okay, internal controls, so you may not have been aware, but the auditors are required to look at your controls closer this year than they have in the past. We've always had an understanding of the controls and how they work and how they function. And as you're aware, the controls need to work regardless of who the person is that's in the chair, that's having that responsibility, right? And whether it's finance or you signing off on authorizations or making motions or any other of your infrastructure. The process of the controls that we examined to get our understanding and confirm the understanding, they are working as you expect them to do. And there were no significant deficiencies that came to our attention. And so again, confirming they are working like you expect them to. When we look at financial statements, we use a perspective of financial materiality. So materiality is basically if you were looking at a set of, if you were investing in a company and your decision would change if the financial statements were misrepresented or misstated by a dollar amount, that dollar amount becomes materiality, right? So it'll change your decision on the statements. On professional standards for municipalities, not-for-profit, many organizations is based on 2 to 4% of your operating revenue. And consistent with prior years, we've used about 3.5% of your operating revenue, or 6 million of operating revenue. So we've looked at the statements with materiality for $220,000. Okay, so what that means, first of all, to most lay people, $220,000, that's a lot of money. Absolutely it is. But remember, it's 200 grand on 6 million, right? And depending on the area that we're looking at, if it's a more sensitive area, that 220 becomes 100 or 50 or 20, depending on how sensitive that area is that we're looking at. So what I'm saying, the overall approach of 220 is global over everything, right? And we will focus that down depending on what we're looking at. These are, I believe this is a document you have here. There's, if you're trouble sleeping, there's an appendix that deals with the audit process. That's all yours. Significant areas that we focused on, and these are consistent, I think, through many of the municipalities that we work on, including yours. So the areas that become sensitive. Are you jumping?
On camera setting you off, so you got a good background.
That's why, yeah. The areas that we looked at, I'm just gonna hit some of the highlights and confirm to you that the long story short, each of the areas we looked at, there have been no significant issues that were unresolved. Okay, so that's a lot of words to say, yep, it's good. What we expected to see is what we have seen, and they are recorded properly in accordance with the public sector accounting standards. So your tax revenue, based on your bylaw, we do a proof and total. Yep. Okay, you're good to go with that. Government transfers for operations and capital. We're looking at the agreements. We're confirming certain amounts. We're confirming whether amounts are received, receivable, or denied. Right. So all three of those components will come through in your confirmation. To just step to the side for a moment, one of the you may, for those who have been in Turner Valley, there's been a carry forward balance from the DRP of about 290,000 ish. He would know the exact number, but let's just go with 290.
282,000.
282. Yeah, I've overstated the problem.
Sure, went into material.
Absolutely, thank you, Mayor, I appreciate that. So 282,000, thank you. But it's been carried forward, and there's been a question of collectability. The conservative approach, particularly since you're amalgamating the towns, is we're not sure that you're going to get it. So it's been cleared off the books. So it comes off your receivables and it becomes a bad debt to the town. Right, so that's the biggest change from the numbers that you would have been reviewing throughout the year as council with Turner Valley. Okay, other areas we look at, payroll, of course, We're looking at the payrolls, individuals are paid what they should be paid based on their employment contracts. That there's, I've only come across this once in my 26 years of working, but phantom employees where they're paid, but they never show up. Okay, and that's not here, by the way. Okay. 26 years outside of this area, okay? So all those that we looked at are working, they're filling out their time accordingly and being paid in accordance with what we would expect them to be paid. Accounts receivable, we talked about the DRP disaster recovery program amounts. We look at your tangible capital assets, and we look at your reserves, your transfers to and from operating and to and from capital. And as I mentioned, all of those have been, they are supported by your relevant documents to ensure that they are recorded properly in accordance with the public sector accounting standards. That's the big picture reporting stuff. Scroll up, so it's gonna be a lot of jumping around. I apologize.
So I will go through the statements at a high level. I know that after us, there's a lot more numbers flying at you, so I won't get too down to the details. Any questions on what Sean has to say for?
Just one for in regards to the DRP. So we basically didn't spend $282,000 on some DRP. Is that how that rolled?
So if I may answer your question through Mayor Crane. So how the DRP works is we were given an allotment of money. So in that allotment of money, there was, I believe, 9 projects. And when we went through the reconciliation process, the last project that was remaining was the project that involved some assets with Truck. But not all of that money upon reconciliation was for those assets. There was monies that were denied for projects that were actually completed in 2016 and 2017. But because a cumulative amount was applied to them, it looked like they actually received full funding, which they did not. So in order to rectify that, we could continue to chase it with the government, which we absolutely will attempt to do. I believe that fight might not be over yet, but in the order of transparency and bringing the financial statements over to the amalgamated entity, we thought it imperative that in discussion with Cameron and his team, that we determine that we may not get that money from the government. Keeping in mind, we did get $16 million from the government. So at the end of the day, if this is the portion that we end up having to fund for some significant assets that we built over the last 7 years, we are, I would say we are quite grateful for the support that we've gotten from the province. Keeping in mind, though, we will still attempt to try and pace that money down. So that's why we determined it was prudent to show that as an expense in this particular calendar year.
Okay, that's a good explanation. And would I be correct in saying that 282 out of 16 million would be less than the material?
On the
The one we used anyway. I'm just gonna be cheesy using that all the time now. Thank you for that explanation. Perfect. Cameron, back to you.
Yeah, so thanks, Sean. Thanks, Craig, for that explanation. Like I said, I'll try to keep everything high level, not get too deep, because obviously after us, there's a lot more numbers flying at you. So as Sean said, this is our independent audit report here. So it is a clean opinion or a unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion you can get. Within the auditor's report, if you scroll down and look through it, you'll notice that there is an other matter, which is discussed. And essentially the other matter is just describing that essentially the town ceasing to exist as of December 31st, and it's going to become the town of Diamond Valley with Black Diamond. So that other matter is just bringing that to the attention of the users of the financial statements, just to be aware of that. And then a little bit further on, it just describes the management responsibility with respect to the audit. So Crane and their team are responsible for preparing the information, giving it to us as auditors. And then if you scroll down a little bit further, it's our responsibility to take that information, assess the risk of the statement, to analyze our procedure, do our procedures to analyze the information presented to us, and then conclude and bring you the audit opinion, which is there. So that's that big long report there. Can we scroll down? Statements managers. Very good. So I have seen a few of you at the meetings, and I'm sure you all have experience with municipal statements. So municipal statements love to present the same information about 6 different ways. I need to look at all 6 different ways to finally build the whole picture. So we're gonna be flipping around a lot, but I'm gonna try to explain the big picture. So when we look at, we'll start at the statement of financial position. The first place I would like us to look is the net financial assets. So the net financial assets is saying from your assets that can easily be liquidated into cash versus all your outstanding liabilities. So who you owe, people you owe, or what you owe. What is the net positivity that the town carries? So the town of Turtle Valley carries. And it's about 3.6 million. If you look at the prior year, it was also 3.6 million. So the Turtle Valley is staying consistent at that healthy net financial asset level. It's a healthy balance, and that's what you want. You don't want to see that get too tight, and you don't want to see it go negative. Below that, you then have your non-financial assets, which is your capital assets, anything already paid for, so that'd be inventory as well as prepaid expenses. So taking that net financial asset number, we're going to remember that number because we're going to come back to it later. In terms of big changes on your balance sheet, just to highlight, because I'm sure if you're looking at year over year, that's usually what I do when I look at a balance sheet. In terms of cash, which we will explain later, essentially a lot of that increase is derived from your operations. In terms of accounts receivable, we've kind of already talked about the accounts receivable. So within the trade receivables, you see there's a big drop. Part of that drop is that DRP we talked about, but also part of that drop is just collecting. There was $700,000 outstanding for MSI last year. And essentially that was just a timing. The MSI was already confirmed, the government just hadn't released funds, the government finally released the funds. So you add those two together, that makes about $1 million of that difference. And then finally, with less capital expenditures, usually there is a large GST receivable balance back to the town. There was less capital expenditures this year, there was less GST receivables. So that's kind of the decrease there. Our taxes are staying consistent, our investments are also staying consistent. When we look at our liabilities in terms of accounts payable, realistically, the only difference here is a requisition. It's one requisition for less ones, which it's just a timing of payment there. So that's your big difference there. Everything else stays pretty consistent, and we will go through some of those to say that. All of that to say is that when we look at it as a whole, there is some changes year over year, but we are fairly consistent with that net financial asset number, which is good. We scroll down now to the statement of operations. Probably not gonna be able to get this all on one screen, I'm sure. We scroll down just a little bit further. See if you can just get that excess part at the very bottom. I know I'm being a prima donna here, I apologize. Okay, so let's start at the excess and we'll work our way back up. So I feel like we have this conversation earlier, but if we look, you can see the excess or deficiency of revenue over expenses, and that looks like a negative. You have to remember that within that negative number, there is a non-cash item that is amortization. Amortization makes up a significant portion of that number. It makes up $1.7 million. So all of a sudden you take that out, look at that, no longer in a negative. And now I'll describe that a little bit further on another schedule. Like I said, 6 different pieces of information, all in a big story. So taking that 1.7 out for a minute, and we look at your statement of operations, let's just do that high level year over year. So taxes, once again, consistent, use council would approve, well, some of you on council would approve that, so you should know that number. In terms of your user fees and sales of goods, it actually is fairly consistent with the prior year. There is one item that changed this. And the one item that changed this is the town of Turtle Valley was like a lot. Sorry, was there a house on that lot as well?
No, it was just an empty land.
So it was an empty lot that was sold this year. And essentially that increase can almost be nailed down straight to that lot sale. Everything else is fairly consistent as well through. In terms of government transfers for operating, you can see there's an increase there. Last year, the town received some grant funding for some of the exploratory talks about automation as well as covering that cost. So that grant was recognized last year. It's not there this year. So all in all, on a high level, revenue is fairly consistent with those 2 exceptions.
Just want to jump in for a moment. When we're talking this year and last year, from our perspective, this year is 22.
Yes.
No, 23.
Yeah.
Okay. So this year is 22, last year is 21.
I'm an auditor, so I'm always in the past, and I apologize. You can believe that I type 22 a lot when I mean type 23, but I'm signing sale. In terms of expenses, I won't go through them here. I think it's better to go to my next piece of information, which will be more by object. When you look at your differences from budget to actual, because that was the council was going to care, I went through every single one, and Believe it or not, that almost every single one, with the exception of administration, is amortization. When you compare budget to actual. The only difference with administration from budget to actual is what we discussed, which is that write-off of that 282 for the every other difference from budget, you can nail it down amortization almost to the dollars. So well done on budgeting council and operation administration.
For sure.
Any questions so far on the balance sheet or income statement? So now we can scroll down a little bit further. Oh, stop there, sorry. And the other piece, which is your capital piece for government transfers. Discussing with administration and knowing the situation in town. Pretty much almost no projects this year, because the amalgamation is coming. Some projects were done or being completed, but essentially no new projects, big projects started, no new undertakings. So to take that, and that leads to that excess deficiency number that we did talk about, but I would like to explain a little further with that amortization kind of there. And we can do that if we scroll down.
Well, go ahead.
So if we scroll down a little further, I'm gonna keep going on the page. Here we go. So this is your statement of cash flows, and I think this represents a little bit better council. Because obviously, if you look at the statement of operations, without that amortization coming in your head, it can look a bit of a scary number. So statement of cash flows here essentially describes how the cash is flowing. So are we basically more cash in than cash going out? The first section is your operating. So that is going to be the judgment of how your operations are doing. So we take that excess or that deficiency that we talked about. Immediately we add back that amortization because that's already cash that you've spent over however many years on your assets. Now it's just the depreciation of those assets that are being recognized in your statements. Then what we do is we look at all the different accounts that you have. So your accounts receivable, your accounts payable, any inventory, any deposits, and any grants that need to be carried forward to future years. Taking all of those cash effects, you can see that the CAC provided by your operation here is actually 1.9. So again, 6 pieces of information to make one big story. This is just another big story. What did you do with that 1.9 million this year? You spent a little bit on capital. You had a little bit of investments decrease, and then you also paid off some debt. So essentially, all in all, total cash increase during the year, 1.5 million. Any questions on that? I'm not quick.
Obvious. Yes. That's it.
Thanks. No, makes sense. Perfect. Okay, keep scrolling now. We're gonna go to schedule 5. Or 6. No, schedule 5. Schedule 5. So as I discussed when we were looking at the budget's actual and your statement of operations, any difference that you were having was mainly that amortization piece. So I believe this schedule could actually give the council a better idea of how things would be spent according to their budget. With respect to why is there a small amount budgeted amortization for this year, that's Shruk's budget. So the portion of Shruk that must be picked up on the statements. So as you know, the town of Turner Valley had a 45% ownership, 45% of Shruk's financials essentially get brought in. So with that, that's the budget. When we look at everything else, you can see the variance is the budget, or the difference is the budget there. And in terms of the biggest ones that you're going to see, so with respect to materials and goods, when we compare it year over year, so it was a big drop from last year. It's also under budget. Last year, there was a large expense for waste bins purchased for the town of Turner Valley. And then with respect to contracts and general services, realistically, it's not one big number that jumps out there. It's a lot of small increases with your contracts and general services, and with inflation the way it is, that's kind of to be expected if you are hiring some outside contractor or have any general service that provides a good to the town as a third party. It's likely their costs went up. That's just a fact, and then you get billed that cost. In terms of the other expenses, that 379, 282,000, that is your bad debt for that DRP. And then, essentially everything else is either on budget or comparable last year. So this, I believe this schedule, taking your statement of operations and your cash flow, kind of tells you that whole story that I was trying to get at. I will take you to a couple notes and then I'll wrap up. I'm sure that's totally numbers at you there. Can we scroll down? Well, it's actually like 13, but 12 is the start of the top of the page, so that'll kind of give you the indication. So I'll keep going with it. Pretty hopeful. Save money. Yes. There we go. So if we can just get the reserve piece. So Sean talked about how when we do our audit procedures, we also look at reserves. So we look at reserves with any amounts as well as if there's any movements in that reserves. Did council approve it? Was council aware of it? Essentially, that's kind of needs to be done. We added a note here just because we do know that there was a motion before the amalgamation that all unallocated reserves had to be allocated prior to the amalgamation. It's not completely reflected in here, just due to how the reporting works. So you'll see this little kind of condition here at the bottom that just describes one of the conditions of the amalgamation was that council attorney value was to allocate all of these reserves prior to the amalgamation. So there's that one. And then if we just scroll up, sorry, I led you astray. We'll scroll up a little bit. A lot of scrolling, I know. One more page. Did note 6. So note 6 describes all the government grants that you currently have the cash for, but have yet to be spent. So FREC is the largest one, MSI is the second largest one, and then there's a few smaller grants. So when we talk about DRP or when we talk about FREC, or we talk about MSI and cash on hand versus what's receivable, this actually tells you what grants have cash have gotten in the door, but we have yet to spend. And that is essentially your statements at a glance. I apologize for the jumping around. I think it's the best way to tell the story. We'll take any questions. Sean, if you want to.
That's fantastic. Questions, starting with?
No. I don't have any questions. I'm gonna check out in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, you betcha.
It's hard.
So,
Thanks.
down here, Heather,
So bottom line is, what is our actual end of year surplus? The dollar amount? Actual?
Actual and cash or actual credit.
Yeah.
Cash.
Cash.
Cash, you got a net cash increase for 1.5 million, and for accounting, you have a deficiency of 1.6 million.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is actually probably more for our finance people. Sorry. Can we, when we do our capital budget this year, can we talk about the FREC? As to, it's been sitting there for years and exactly what we would have, what it covers or doesn't, or like all the details about that. Okay.
I have actually, through the chair for our meeting on Friday, I've compiled all of our grant information and everything is going to be in there as well. I did want to mention because of the way the pronouncements work, we cannot show a receivable for the federal gas tax fund. So we try to, but every year the auditors say, no, you can't, and they make us take it out. So we do have almost 453,000 of money that grant program owes us. But because we haven't identified a project specifically for it, they will not give us the money. So that amount is not showing on here, but it is money that the government does owe us.
yeah, I'll let you go first.
Funny how they can just make rules.
Yeah.
Percent property, so it's showing up in financial statements, it goes to the revenues, but that's money that has to go in for Parks and Recreation reserves. We can't get them. So it has been, okay, because we didn't have it set up as a reserve in the financial statements, but we do have it. Perfect.
I do just have a question on that FGTF. Yeah, anyway.
CCBF is called that.
There you go. So if you guys don't identify it for us and you're not allowed to, how does a new council coming into this seat looks at financial audit's supposed to know it exists.
I can answer that one, Mayor. We're just giving you not judge, we are giving you a perspective of what went on for 12 months and your snapshot at the end of it. So that is supplemental to what you have from your finance department. So even though the accounting rules say you can't, we call it an assability, so it's an asset and a liability.
Great word.
Okay.
There you go, Trey.
That's going into Webster's.
So if it, from the accounting side of it, you don't usually have a receivable and a payable to the same entity, hence we eliminate the assability side of it. But then your finance department says, okay, now we have, they told us we're gonna get this amount of money, we just haven't spent it or haven't identified the project.
Two
So
separate
you-
things.
they're-
You're doing your 12-year recap. They're gonna say, oh, that's looking good. And by the way, we got a few more cogs in the wheel that we can check this year.
Correct.
Okay, and then it would fall into your realm. If we actually process through something, you'd say, yeah, no, that was all good.
Exactly.
Okay, good. All right. Yep. Yeah, so you're done. We're gonna call a recess, 5 minutes.
Can we,
Oh,
just through the chair, we have to, pass a motion
yes.
for these statements. Oh,
Yeah, and that comes later in the agenda, doesn't it?
no, it doesn't.
7.
I did put it lower on this delegation.
Yeah, some.
Oh, right after all of them.
Okay.
We'll take a break.
Just don't, sure you know.
Okay, but we'll get you guys wrapped up, further in the agenda. Thank you. That was very well done. Appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
5 minute, 5 minute, recess. All right, we're gonna reconvene our meeting here at 8:08 PM. Mr. Calvin Scott is with us for, wait for it, 6.3 avail CPA audited financial statements for Black Diamond. And floor is yours, Calvin.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
So often I get to present after another set of auditors. So now you understand these financial statements completely. I don't have to my presentation. I'll be fast for you. I don't want you to be here till 11 o'clock, so we'll run through it briefly.
Appreciate it.
And a lot of it is repetitive. Every audit firm is required to do the same thing when it comes to assessing risks, addressing materiality, providing you the same information. So luckily I don't need to go through any of that for you. So we'll get right into it. What we'll cover, and here's the clicking, I apologize. We'll go through the independent auditor's report. We'll touch on the financial results. We'll mix in some notes of the financial statements in there. I'll go through quickly the indicators of financial condition as well. So these are the graphs. You have paper copies of all that in front of you as well. On how you compare to other municipalities. One of the questions we often get asked is what do we look like compared to others? So this will tell you. And we'll briefly go through the management letter and post-audit letter. What that is mentioned. The first thing I'll jump into is your independent auditor's report. As you've already gone through it, these statements as well have a clean opinion. So they are presented fairly in accordance with public sector accounting standards. There you go. The next one, it also said that manager is responsible for these statements. You as a council are responsible for the oversight of management. And us as auditors are responsible for identifying any risk of material in the statement, for ensuring that we understand your controls, for evaluating policies and estimates within those financial statements, ensuring you can continue on into the future, so assessing that going concern, and evaluating the presentation of financial statements. No issues with any. So clean opinion, had there been any issues, we would have told you far before. Now we'll jump into the numbers. You actually had in Black Diamond as opposed to Turner Valley, there's some changes happening this year. On an overall basis, we see revenues were up about $114,000. The revenues this year are about $7 million. These numbers are the consolidated numbers. They include your 45% of truck. The non-consolidated numbers would have that total revenue of about $6.8 million, so about $176,000 difference. And that revenue is all going to be sitting in user fees. This year taxes were up about $86,000 compared to last year. So that was a budgeted increase. There was also some additional levies on some annex properties that came in for that. Government transfers were down about $174,000. In the prior year, we would have saw some COVID funding, the most funding that came in, not there this year, so we'll see some decreases there. Investment income, good kick up about $108,000. So better GSE rates would have increased that during the year. Some of the other significant ones, we'll see if there's a gain on disposal in the prior year. Last year, we got rid of a couple of garbage trucks in San County. So that would have came in a loss of disposal. Rent kicked up, with having a full year of operation with all public facilities. Your other income is mostly donations and fundraising for the skate park that came in this year. And offsite levies were down about $105,000. So last year there was some fees in lieu of downtown parking that occurred. There was also some one-time water distribution levies that were in there. Those are the overall changes from item to item. But on an overall basis, we have revenues up 114, so an increase from last year is always good to see. Next thing we'll touch on is these expenses. As was previously mentioned, your expenses include non-cash items, so amortization, big number, I believe we're about 1.3 million that's included in here. These statements, yes, 6 different statements we need to look at to get that picture. Your expenses don't include debt repayments, transfers to reserves, or capital expenditures. We do show all of your operating revenues and capital revenues in here, so that's why they're very misleading statements. To some extent, I'm giving you a complete picture of what happened. But on the overall expense side, we're looking at an increase of about $225,000. And you have one-time costs in here. We kick it up a little bit. Oh, move the.
Oh, yeah. Staring at Hazel, not that. Yeah, I was just like, I can't see the bottom.
I love it. So we're up with the expense at $225,000. We were up a little bit with, or down in legislative costs with the election last year, not happening this year. Admin costs were up about $122,000. There's a significant amount of amalgamation costs. There was some severance pay given the amalgamation as well that was in there. We had fire was up this year, so there were some wage adjustments. Some of this is going to be amortization with the new fire truck that came in last year, last time, and it's a non-cash amount that increased there. The water and wastewater both down. So last year there was capital requisitions for Schruck and for West End Regional that would have been included in those expenses, capital requisitions that didn't occur or at the same magnitude this year. So we'll see a decrease there. We'll see waste management kick up this year. So having Okotoks, I believe in June, took over the services for the recycling and organic. So we're going to see that increase in the waste management side of things. And we'll have the land use also up this year. So we have a growth infrastructure plan in downtown area redevelopment plan that will occur. So that's about an extra $100,000 up from that. And the last big change here is going to be parks, up about $100,000. And most that's going to be wages, given everything is open again, everything's running. We're going to see those increases. So next slide, I'll just show you where we're at for revenues, expenses. We saw revenues up 114,000, expenses are up about 225. So our loss before capital revenues about $710,000. When we add in our capital revenues this year, we did have a significant chunk of capital going on here, about 1.1 of capital revenues that came in. So we do show a surplus, $434,000 for the year. This is your accounting surplus. Again, this includes amortization. It doesn't include your capital purchases, debt repayment, reserve transfers. Once we do all of those things, we come out to a surplus of about $158,000 on a non-consolidated basis and about $175,000 on a consolidated basis. So we're on the plus side this year, not actually at 434. We'll run through the cash and what that looks like, but about $150,000 surplus for the year. Next thing we'll hit is the cash flows. So you had a wonderful explanation of this before. So it's easy for me now. You get all the lines. Operations this year generated about $1.3 million of cash, which is wonderful to see. What did you do with that? Spent about 2.8 on capital. We'll run through what those capital additions are later. We moved about $1 million from long-term investments to short-term investments that increased the cash and short-term investment balance. We already paid about $97,000 in debt. And had no new debt this year. So overall, we had a use of cash. Cash went down about $661,000 last year. And we'll go to the next slide. We'll show you where you're at as of December 31st. Your financial assets, what you own, your liquid assets, cash again was down. We're gonna see the taxes, the receivable balance this year came down a little bit. In a lot of municipalities, we've seen this balance decrease given that COVID effects are over. People are catching back up on the bills. So that's nice to see. General accounts receivable, your trades and other receivable are up. This year we had more grants coming in, so there's $160,000 sitting there from AUMA for the electronic vehicle charges. That's going to be your major receivable, again, to be received at the end of the year. On the liability side, we'll see an increase. Overall, we'll see a decrease in the liabilities, but in your accounts payable, we're going to see an increase this year. So police funding, there's about $108,000. Cities payable at the end of the year. We also had some severance pay payable in the year, about $36,000 in capital items. Based off the timing of events, when checks are cut, what's going on at the end of the year, this will vary every single year.
Is that this sheet here?
Yes, the accounts payable is going to be the 558 to the 4, where we're going to see the increase there.
Okay, that's what you're referring to.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Security deposits changed a little bit. Mainly, you're going to see some deposits on the Riverwood properties. Deferred revenue will run through the note quick. Again, that's unspent, externally restricted funds, government funding that has been spent. No debt this year, always a good thing. And your other liabilities are going to be prepaid property taxes that come in. So your net financial asset position, we're down about $1 million, but still in a very healthy position from 8 to 7. So if we had to liquidate all those assets, not counting your buildings or anything else, you'd be left over with $7 million. So a good healthy position wise. Nice to see both hands in good healthy positions when we put them together, so that's beautiful. Your next page will show you quickly the deferred revenue, so you can see the changes in there. Your largest balance is going to be the MSI Capital, the unspent portion of that, and we do have some Canadian Community Building Fund amounts that are sitting in unspent at this point in time. The projects are earmarked, but they have yet to be spent. The next one I'll take you to is your non-financial assets. So your major part of this is going to be your tangible capital assets, 40 million there, 2.8 of additions this year, offset by about 1.3 of amortization. Major projects this year, First Avenue Southwest was about $950,000. There was a fire truck at about 660 this year. We had some road improvements on 4th Ave as well, another 300. Skate Park is about 220, so some significant projects going on during the year prior to the consolidation. Also the electric vehicle chargers coming in there too, so a lot of projects underway at the end of the year. We can see just below this, your accumulated surplus, what this is made up of. On a consolidated basis, we can see that there is some reserves have been spent this year. Your equity and tangible capital assets increased a little bit with having more additions than amortization. And we're going to show an unrestricted deficit at the end of the year. This is consistent. If we remove the effects of Shrunk, or your 45% of that, that is actually a surplus of about $943,000. So we're taking in a deficit on a combined basis with them. So Shrunk's bringing you down from a consolidated perspective. I'm talking about opinion. But your numbers right there, it's at 45%. It's decreasing your overall surplus. The next item I'll show you is just a breakdown of your reserves, your capital and operating. Both decreased on an overall basis this year. Some due to capital spending, some due to funding on the operating side. And the last note I'll show you just for information purposes is going to be just the investment in government partnerships, which is the Shrunk investment. This shows the percentages of the Shrunk, the 45% that is included in your financial statements. Again, only for information purposes on this. So this is the very brief presentation, the overview of old information prior to consolidation. Questions on that? Before we jump in, just some comparative numbers for you. Okay. Anyone? No? Everyone's numbered out. All right, let's not comparables. I like
Comparables are fun.
Comparables are great. So I'll take you through these quickly. So in here, the blue line will be the town of Black Diamond. you. The red line is gonna be an average of all towns, any town in Alberta. There's 105 other towns, actually 105 total towns, including yourself. That would be 104 now as well. The green line you'll see is gonna be the comparable size of any towns that are there. So within a 25% population range, that is gonna show you a closer comparative. And the purple line is gonna be much the same, but it will include any population. So there could be, at this point in time, any MDs or villages, summer villages, or anything of the sort that would have a comparable population. Those have been included as well. So there's multiple comparatives to look at. The first one we'll look at is just assets to liabilities. So when we look at your financial statements, this is total assets, just includes your tangible capital assets in comparison to your total liabilities. As we know, we put about 2.83 million into tangible capital assets this year, and our liabilities came down a little bit this year. So paying off debt, spending some deferred revenue to increase those assets overall. You can see that you have an increase in comparison to most other municipalities here. We're looking at about 14% is what your asset to liabilities are, is 14-1, and a comparable average for all towns is about 8. So you have a significant amount of assets. You're in a good financial position and a lot healthier on this ratio in comparison to a lot of other municipalities of comparable size and population all across the board.
In fewer words, we are the bar.
Yes.
My accent feel.
Yeah. You have a meme out of that? The next one we'll move to is financial assets to liabilities. So this will take out your tangible capital assets and leave you with your cash, account receivable, and still at a higher level on a comparative basis than all comparative municipalities. Lesser so, or not such a significant increase over everybody else, but still at a higher position. The next one we'll look at is the current ratio. So still looking at assets to liabilities. This is going to be your current assets to current liabilities. So anything close to cash, near cash. Been significantly high in the past as we're spending grants and keep coming down. We're bringing it right back into to about an average range. We're looking at about still above 6.4 here. So on a regular basis, the town of Black Diamond has been in a very healthy position from a cash perspective. Having significant amounts in reserves, having a healthy asset balance, so a healthy financial position for sure. The next one I'll show you is operating expenses to taxable assessment. This would say you are a little bit, you're at 2% operating expenses to your total taxable assessment. Comparative towns are at about 2.36. Some other averages are a little bit lower, but you're right in the range of having your regular expenses, which are up from last year. Taxable assessment hasn't changed significantly. It's actually a little bit down and you're still in a comparative range. So yet again, healthy from an operating expense side of things. The next indicator will be public debt charges to revenues. And you want to be on the low side here. So you have lower debt as a municipality in comparison to everything. So there's significant change here. You're at 0.02 as a municipality, you're 0.05 as a comparative. So less than half of what everybody else would have on a comparative basis. So doing well with your own funds, not spending over and above your means with that. You can look at it from a different way too, potentially. Your constituents want you to take out more debt and spend more money, fix that currently center immediately. We take that to do that. I'm not suggesting that that's what we need to do, but on a comparative basis, very low debt, very good management. Responsible place. Debt again is going to be here too in comparison to revenue, and once again a very, very low percentage. So your debt levels significantly below compared to the municipality. So it's good to see. Everything we're looking at are healthy indicators of financial performance here. The next is the infrastructure investment. This is all over the map. It's depending on your infrastructure, your capital spend on an annual basis. Generally, we're looking to see if it's over or under what the annual amortization is, or the expensing of your current assets over their useful lives. Are you outspending that, or are you underspending what you normally be writing on an annual basis? You've been above 1 at any point in time. This year, the spend at 2.8 million versus 1.3 significantly higher. It's always gonna go up when you have significant capital projects. In part, on a comparative basis, very hard to compare municipalities doing different things at different times, depending what grants are coming out. Election years, we'll see more grants coming out or changes to it, see more money put out there, so this will change. Next would be reserves to total accumulated surplus. So your accumulated surplus would have what you've invested into tangible capital assets, your building, your equipment, your underground. It would also include, and I've adjusted these numbers to make sure that they're correct. Your surplus of reserves and then your unspent or unrestricted surplus. So the reserve portion of what you put away for future use is actually higher than what most municipalities have. So at 18% versus 13%. So you have looked into future capital replacement for operating consistency and have a good, healthy amount of reserves early in comparison to other municipalities. And the last indicator we'll show you is going to be the accumulated surplus available for future use. So this is going to show the restricted amount. So the reserves you have put away, the accumulated surplus. Here's where Schwab would affect you going from 1 million deficit into 900,000. But on the accumulated basis, your total accumulated surplus is about $7.5 million. Comparable town average 6.9. So still above. So on every comparable indicator, the kind of Black Diamond, it's going above the bottom. It's looking great, good financial, healthy position into this. Any questions on those?
We are so. Now we're time to close or what?
Yeah, no, it's the time to say the one word West End.
No, I didn't say that word. I was waiting for that.
Yeah.
Next we just have, well, there's a question slide and then we'll flip past that if there's no questions. The management letter this year, we found, I think it was 2 very small issues. Part of the controls we looked for in verifying some of our, or controls we rely on would be signatures to prove that certain events have happened. So when we were looking at some of the fire department pay grids and the approval of some employee salary adjustments, they were approved. We verbally know that they were approved. We don't see a signature on it. So this is a couple of instances where we found this not significant. We know that it happened. We said, please, if that's the control we're relying on, to make sure that the signature there is so we can have something to look at to make sure it happened. Not significant. Same thing on, there was a timesheet approval on which that happened as well. So again, nothing significant. We know that these controls are all changing as it's happening. We don't think it's something be about loading or testing. We found those 2 single items that occurred. So we bring them to your attention. And the last thing, the post audit letter would say we found us as well, no illegal acts or fraud, no disagreements with management. We encountered no issues during the audit. And then some future changes, emerging issues that are occurring. A lot of these aren't going to come through for this year, but there'll be more of a next year thing. Financial instruments, financial statement concepts. Asset retirement obligation is something we'll have to, administration will have to deal with this year. So looking at what assets we have, identifying which ones may have future retirement obligations. So should we have any buildings with asbestos, determining the liability that would be associated with those assets and reporting that liability in the future. There's also some financial statement changes, but these financial statements are dictated for by the overall government. So we're all good there. And some public-private partnership changes that we'll have more guidance on. I'm sure at this point in time, nothing's particular. That's it. That's all I got for you. That's as fast as I could get it out and still do everything. And hopefully not have to be here till.
Where did West End fall into this? Is it not?
It is not really consolidated.
That's a requisition.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going.
So if I may through the chair, that is going to change in 2023, how we report it.
Yes.
It will look different. But for this 2020, it stays with the current format as the how the organization is structured hasn't changed it's changing in 2023.
Okay. All right, sounds good. So you're saying that, Black Island's got 18% reserves and normal communities have 13%.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
Well,
Spent 5% and we're just in line with
we're
everybody else.
just digging holes.
So.
Digging holes. Oh, we got to
Interesting thought on that. That also, we also haven't spent a lot of money on projects that needed to be done.
Having high reserves is not a good thing if you're not.
We got 5% to dig holes.
Yes. It could be looked at as why are we paying so much in taxes if you're just sitting. There is a negative point of view that could come from there for many constituents, but it is a very healthy position to be in for being able to do projects from capital or from any one-time
It's
expenses.
the taxpayers that built those reserves up,
Yes.
so I don't agree with them hitting that high. We should be looking at our infrastructure and getting it fixed.
Fixed on plan. I can see him smiling.
That's right. Okay, any questions for Calvin? Because if not, we're gonna stamp and go because we got a big agenda. Going once.
Thanks,
Going
Calvin.
twice. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We'll sign that off.
You'll get everything electronically for signing, for my signatures this week, so. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin.
Yes. Any problems? Tell me, yeah, you're working with one rate. Yeah. You're this way, yeah. Yeah. And 5 years ago.
And thank Karina, she was great.
Oh, I saw this one.
Yeah, for sure. And she was really great. She was patient as I was running around.
Oh.
Great for me.
You guys have been, thanks very much.
Thank you again.
I just did. Well, I don't consider.
Here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Very.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll put the motion forward.
Give us a motion, Councillor Thompson.
The council approved the 2022 audit findings and 2022 River Valley audited financial statements as presented. To meet the mandatory May 1st deadline for submission to municipal affairs.
Yep. Any comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Excellent. I'll take a 6.3 or 7.2, sorry.
I don't have in front of me, but can I say ditto? Because I bet you it's worded the exact same thing, but Black Diamond. It's not election. I
Got it ready.
okay. Oh. Yeah. The council approves the 2022 audit findings and 2022 Black Diamond financial statements as presented to meet the mandatory May 1st deadline for submission to the municipal affairs. I'm assuming that's.
Hazel, she's on.
Yeah, hang on.
Excellent.
Keeps getting sorry.
All in favor? Thank you, Hazel. We see you there. Perfect. Okay, moving on, bylaws and policy. 8.1 first reading land use bylaw amendment for 2154 Street Northwest. Mr. Patience, over to Rod Bingbang.
Yeah, Mayor Crane, thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely pass this over to Mr. Roth to explain this redistricting request.
Mr. Mayor and Council, the town received an application to amend the land use bylaw to redistrict property located at 415 4A Street Northwest. That's just north of the Bass Gas, south of what we call Lego Block Park. You can be very connected to the maps. So, see the location. The property is currently assigned to the direct control district, and that direct control district states that a 33 unit residential apartment building can be built on that site. The application is to change that district to the central business district. The applicant hopes to construct a mixed use, commercial, residential structure on the site with commercial on the main floor and residential units on the second floor. The application also is to amend the land use bylaw by adding childcare services as a discretionary use in the central business district. It's currently not listed as a use, and one of the tenants for the space that the applicant hopes to build is would be a daycare. So add that as a discretionary use. The report, there is a full report that was presented to the planning commission that's attached to this RFP. Has been council's practice to not delve too deep into the details of the application until after, well, at the time of public hearing, at first reading. The practice has been to grant the first reading and set a date for a public hearing. Advertising in accordance with the advertising bylaw, and then the full report is presented at the public hearing for the public and council to hear, and it's an opportunity for the public to address the application, for the applicant to address council, for council to have that big conversation with everyone. Yeah, that's the application. I'm happy to take any questions from council at this time.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, council. I'm gonna go right to Brendan, Councillor Kelly.
Just a question, Rod, and thank you. Sitting on MPC, privy to a lot of this information upfront, which has been great. If the land stays in DC6, so it doesn't go to central business, is the same unit still possible to build there? So I'm just looking, what's the difference outside of the designation that DC6 already has? So can the applicant still build the same building if we leave it in DC6?
Through the mayor, chair. No, the DC6 district doesn't contemplate any commercial use in the district. It would have, the DC6 bylaw would have to be amended to allow for commercial use.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm gonna go to Veronica.
Yep.
Similar question, why is administration recommending central business instead of amending the bylaw for DC6?
Chair, it's an application. This is an application brought forward by an interested party. The central business district, assigning it to a standard district like the central business district allows for a wide range of uses. There's a number of permitted and discretionary uses in that district. So over time, in a commercial building, you typically see a number of different uses coming and going. So the central business district would allow for a wide range of uses. It also delegates, the land use bylaw delegates development control authority to the development officer, or in the case of certain variances to the municipal planning commission, whereas districts typically development control resides with council unless they choose to delegate it. So the thought was to assign it to a standard district, and that way development approvals can follow the usual.
Yeah, I don't want to delve into it too much before we hear from the public and from the developers, but my only concern, of course, is that elevation and flooding and consequences to the neighboring residences. you know, we've kind of gone through that with DQ, so that's my only concern, so I hope that'll be addressed.
Yeah, just want to note on the childcare thing, our Turner Valley's land use bylaw actually allows it as permitted use. It's kind of strange, but just the difference between land use bylaws that childcare is not allowed in your downtown. But for ours and so, you know, this is the registry and with yours, that being an issue. We are gonna have a lot, I think, when we do a public we go to the public on this, a lot of information in our, a lot of feedback in our first hearing. In the public hearing, so we can really discuss after that, but there is, what I can see from this application, that there's gonna be some infrastructure issues because of, not because of, because other people have been using this land to dump water on, it hasn't been correctly controlled properly. So when they develop, it's not their fault that other places aren't, you know, shooting their water in or arranging their water flow properly. So I think there's got to be some capital issues that I don't know if Craig, if you're looking into stormwater and how everything works over there.
Through the chair, Councillor Halliday, I haven't reviewed the infrastructure with any real thorough view on storm. I looked at the water and sewer, I think we're plumbing there. Most of the storm in that neighborhood is overland, so I'm not sure that we would be looking to do any in-ground storm. So, I know that the site is addressing storm on the property with, I would suspect that Rob can talk to us a little bit more, but from the plans that I've seen, it looks like they look to manage the overland and off the building.
Yeah, so they have to, from what I understood at our meeting, they have to take care of their own water, but if other people aren't taking care of theirs processing, then that shouldn't something, we shouldn't let that stand in the way of them doing what they want to do with their land. And that by saying yes to these kind of developments, there might be other unintentional consequences that we need to take care of as a town. But we need to, like, I guess my warning on this is to just make sure that landowners are responsible for certain things and we as a town might then become responsible for other things.
Rob, come in and walk on it.
Yeah, this chair, the landowner would be responsible for maintaining storm water on the site and then controlling the discharge of that storm water used, either it's gutter or into a storm sewer. There is a storm sewer located in the park, just very, very, very close to the property, so they can tie into the gas space through the park to discharge.
I'm supportive of residential and commercial. I have no problem with that. You know, if you think about it, you know, let's just take flooding, for example. You put an island in the middle of the water, it's still going up to the post office. That's where it went, that's where we'll go again. Whether there's an elevated amount of land here or not, that's where our flood's gonna go. But I would echo Councillor Holiday's in terms of the disruptive nature that it may create something of an issue coming down the road and then hitting a 1 meter berm. So I would really want to see that mitigated, and I know they're responsible for their water on their site, but it will create, I believe, great issues on that roadway and it being lower. So I really got to see how that's going to play out, and I don't know if we have the ability to put in stormwater on top of, and that's why I think direct control. You know, it's better because council has a say in the matter versus if we just opt it off, follow the criteria, central business, meet the requirements, and we're done. Then we get backlash afterwards. So I'd like to be able to mitigate some of this at the early stage, which is why I'd be in favor of sticking with central direct 6 and just making an amendment to allow commercial. Like Sydney said, Turner Valley has it in theirs. So I just think the council with this particular piece, it's a very important piece. It's very important to the residents. And I think that we need to have a bit of skin in the game in terms of teeth. So I think we need to get to first reading. I think that's clear because we can't do anything until we get the public involved. But I'd really like to go into it on a direct control. And then we could adjust back, Rod. I'm asking a direct question now. If we went in on a direct 6, could we back it up and move it to CB if we need it? Or write the bylaw that, 95% is going to be the same as CB. That last little check off is going to be council directive. Is it overly complicated, or is it just a little bit of, we have to be a bit more if we were to go that way?
They're here. If we were to go the direct control route, that would, it'd be a new bylaw, which we just have to write a new bylaw. We can't amend this bylaw. It's too many amendments. We just create a brand new bylaw.
Okay.
So if we go that route, create a new bylaw for direct control, it can be structured to. We just have to understand what is it that council wants to have direct control over, because that's what direct control is. It's giving council direct control over a development. So in order to create that bylaw, we would have to understand what it is that you want to achieve that can't be achieved in a central business district.
Great, perfect, excellent. Let's put that to council. I got Veronica and then I got Kay.
Two really quick things for public hearing. This water thing came up with the jury, and I brought it up after the jury spilled. I know a little bit about this water stuff because I lived in an engineer's office for the past 20 years. And we specialize in wastewater water management. So the Water Act says you can't block an existing water course with your development. Now, this is very gray, and Alberta Environment wants you to have some sort of skin in the game. So I can't just be driving through Claresville and be like, "Ooh, infraction, I'm phoning." No, the neighbor would have to be affected and involved. And then just as an aside, the elevation for the building off street level 1.4 meters. I just did the math for accessibility. You would need a 60-foot ramp to get correct grade to get into this building from the street. Lots of switches.
Which isn't new.
No, there are no building plans. So.
So, but yeah, okay, yeah, that's a good point. Okay. I'll go to Kelly.
Yeah, so just some of the things, and again, these might be questions that we deal with at the hearing, but some of the things I've heard from residents and also being down in that area, because I frequent the Lego park, I like that tagline. I didn't know that that's what you guys called it. But currently there's no sidewalk on that street, which is a huge concern, not only to the residents that live there, but also if you're talking about putting a daycare there, how do the kids move around without having to go actually on the roadway? Another point there in terms of traffic is a lot of people fly down that road, and during it's considered the secondary highway as far as I understand. So if we have the parade or if there's anything going on where the main street shut down, all the traffic gets rerouted onto that road. So again, there's no sidewalk, the potential of a daycare, and then increased pedestrian and vehicles. You guys have already touched on the overland flooding. And then more directly involved in the planning would be the landscaping. And I think that would kind of come about in the first public hearing, the engagement, what residents around that area are looking for. Because and I bring this up because since the parking lot by the bridge has been built, I've been hearing from residents that the street lights from the cars have been shining into their homes, and there's been no trees or anything put up. There were a lot there previous when the house was still there, before we moved the house and put the parking lot there. So the lights in the parking lot are on pretty much all the time. They're dealing with increased lights that are coming across the bridge. So there's just a couple of things, and maybe the business is the right way to go. But when it comes to direct control, I think that having a finger on a lot of that is important to myself and potentially other council members. So I don't know, Rod, if I'm just talking for talking's sake, but I don't know if the sidewalk is something that we would control as council moving ahead, because we'd have to engage with the residents. Because that wouldn't be not only just the property, we'd be talking to potentially Fast Gas, AG Foods, other residents that live on that street about potentially giving up some of their front lawn for a sidewalk, or maybe we have to tear up additional parts of the street to put a sidewalk in. So for me, keeping it in direct control and creating a new bylaw makes sense, because we can see all that, because ultimately we're the ones that have to deal with the residents. And so that's why I'd like to keep it there. But again, maybe you can address some of these concerns. Maybe I'm way out of left field. But those are the things that I've been hearing.
I'll go to Rob first. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, what council has to determine in reviewing this application, you have to decide, is that site suitable for the use that's being proposed? So certainly, if you look at it's important to look at the infrastructure that is necessary to support the proposed use. So things like sidewalks, certainly that's a valid concern. It could be a condition of approval to construct a sidewalk. Town has the authority through the act to require a sidewalk to connect to other sidewalks, even if it's off-site. Like, not only would they have to build a sidewalk in front of their property, we can require them to build a sidewalk to tie into an existing sidewalk. Now, is that, you have to weigh kind of the fairness of that, but something a council could do. But and you look at other infrastructure, is the road, what is the impact of the traffic, of the increased traffic on the road, and is that road suitable for that? Can it support that addition? So when you're reviewing the application, is a site suitable for the use? That's what we have to decide. Is the potential impact on neighboring residents, is it acceptable in a town? Especially in a small town, you're gonna have uses rub up against one another. It's inevitable. You're gonna have different uses, so at some point you have an edge, and one use is gonna be up against another. Can those impacts be mitigated? It's a council decision to try and make, but those are the things that are considered. If you go the direct control route, certainly you can be in control. You can have a more direct hand on how those issues are mitigated. Though, if you go there's a commercial, certainly the MPC or the development officer also give consideration to those impacts and do the best to mitigate impacts. Not all impacts can be mitigated. Some things are unavoidable. There might be shadowing, there might be increased noise, there might be increased activity. You can't eliminate impact altogether, but you have to determine what is reasonable.
Can I ask a follow-up? Just about conditions?
Yeah, I was gonna kind of reference the same thing, because I think.
Go ahead, Dan. I'll see.
Yeah, you can follow up.
Yeah.
I think Mayor Kelly, Mayor Kelly.
Sorry. Doesn't hurt me.
Hit exactly on the thread that we have, underlying with the amount of response we get from residents on something like this is exactly that sidewalk issue. Here's something that needs to happen. Now, is it the developer? Is it council looking into capital budget? What's the trade-off? That's where there's a little bit of hesitancy in terms of just, okay, it's CB and Z. We want to make sure that we're following up on election promises for pathways, parks, right? Here we're cutting off a park, but we can add a sidewalk for a secondary highway. Okay, we've increased accessibility, good, and so on. So really, I think that was a great question. Deputy Mayor. So that's the angst that I have, exactly what he said. Here we now have capital projects tied to it. Are we gonna foot the bill, or is that something that can be negotiated? When does that happen? But you're right, we just need to decide, is this proper use? I'll go to Kelly and then I'll go to Cindy.
Yeah, this is my last one. Thank you, Mayor Crane. So in terms of, and this is coming, I'm sure, from a lack of inexperience on my end, but in terms of the conditions, so if, and this may not have anything to do with direct control or central business, but who sets the conditions and who gets to decide on long, like timeline or, you know, how long the sidewalk's gonna be? Does council decide that and set the conditions? Do we hear through the public hearing? And the feedback's taken by our planning team and they say, hey, based on the feedback we got, these are conditions that we're gonna set. Could I get a little bit more clarity on that?
Yes, so the conditions are set by the development authority. So the council sets the land use and then that's, yeah, it's council's decision to set the land use, and then applications for the uses that are listed in the district are brought, you know, are decided on by the development authority. And the development authority can be either the planning commission or the development officer, depending on the nature of the application. But this type of application we would, you know, typically bring forward to the planning commission for a decision. So when something's brought forward to the planning commission for a decision, staff, administration, we write the conditions, but the decision's ultimately made by the planning commission. So the commission reviews the conditions and decide whether they're appropriate or not. In terms of the sidewalk, specifically, if there was some kind of, we're considering some kind of cost sharing arrangement between the developer and the town, have to turn to Corinne and we'd have to figure out how, you know, how to broach that that subject. Probably have to be some council. I don't know. We'd have to figure out how that decision would work, whether the town would be involved in the cost sharing arrangement for the construction of the sidewalk. But, you know, talking it through, we thought, you know, we would make them connect with the sidewalk on the north side of Sedgwick, on the north side of Highway 7. Yeah, it'd be reasonable for there to be a cost sharing arrangement, I think. To put that, to make an applicant build 100 meters of sidewalk, it's not even on their property. Yeah, we hear a lot from the economic development community that we're, you know, hard to do business with, and we squeeze applicants a little too tight for what we want. So probably some cost sharing would be suitable. How that is arranged, how that's worked out, we would probably have to talk to council about it.
All right, Cindy, will you wrap this up?
Yeah, I think we've done it. You really have to separate the land use designation from, you know, your notice of decision conditions that they get when they actually go to develop the site. It's two different things. And stormwater management plan, traffic impact assessment, all those things are done as part of the emissions, not as part of the land use association. But it's people that have invested money in land, and we have a municipal planning commission that we've delegated authority to that. And some municipalities, council just does it, they don't have one. But we decided to do a municipal planning commission, so I say it should just be regular. It doesn't make sense for it to be direct control when the owner wants to just be a normal commercial business district. I say we do first reading, and I think most everything that we hear will be able to be dealt with through all the conditions of the future application, and let municipal planning do what municipal planning does.
Okay. All right. Ron?
Well, we have to give it first reading to proceed.
Yep, exactly.
The council, where were you right? The council of the bylaw 2023-19. To make sure I'm on the right thing, removed yesterday. To amend the land use bylaw 2021-06, first reading.
Is that the correct one, Mr. Rob? Sir, okay. All right. Any further discussion? I think we're gonna get more clarity when we get to public hearing, and I think that's where we need to get to. So, Hazel, you good to vote? Okay, all in favor? And all opposed? Thank you, that's carried. Go ahead.
The council scheduled a public hearing for bylaw 2023-19 on May 17, 2023, and to provide notice of the public hearing as per advertising bylaw 2023-12.
Any further comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Yes. Oh,
Wanted to add something. We did amend our public participation policy to only do 1 week, but then we down from the 2. Is this a contentious file enough that you think that you would want more advertising above and beyond? Just bring it up because we talked about it.
Okay, so you can do this, you can do this.
Councilor Martin, we can hear you. Go ahead.
No, nothing.
Okay.
Sound like something.
I think we run it 2 weeks. Like
That's above. and beyond.
the 1 week, the 1 week is if we wanted to, right? The 1 week is if we wanted to.
Those are minimums, right?
Yeah, yeah, 2 weeks is our standard, so it's to keep standard. So,
Can we put that in? Can we, does that need to be?
That's why I
That's
wanted to
Oh, we changed it.
change it to 1.
Yeah.
option.
Minimum.
No.
Minimum of 1.
Because it's
We gotta run it 2.
Run it. Okay, that's why I wanted to happily accepting friendly.
Yes, yes,
Let it flow.
yes, let's move to 2.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so as amended.
Are you being specific about 2 weeks in the newspaper?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
And it's
leave it on.
immediately on the site.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got,
go crazy.
Yeah.
Smash it everywhere.
yeah.
2 weeks.
Get the loons, skywriters, everything, do it all.
Keep it within budget, okay? All right, all in favor? Excellent. Thank you for the
Awesome.
answers to the questions, Rob. Appreciate your time. If there's nothing else on this agenda for you, I suggest you run that. Okay, because Craig there, he's like just gonna punch me out when I get outside. Yeah, if you're done, you can head her out then.
Just say you're done, Rob, just leave, just say.
We've got.
I'm done too.
There's the report under the administration reports, is there not, Roger?
Oh, there's my staff.
Give her right now.
Well, you know, I'm thinking,
Unless anybody had any specific questions for him, I like your plans for plans, but it's.
would that be uncalled for? Because seriously, if we can start getting some of these people home.
I'll give you a motion.
I would be totally fine with, asking Rob to give his report right now, so we can.
If council has no questions on the report, we can let them go.
Yeah.
No question.
I had no questions on it.
Hazel, did you have any questions for Rod on his report under the CAO and manager's report?
No, I didn't.
Okay, we're gonna let him go home, okay? All right, so.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
Council?
Yeah. thank you. Okay, moving on. 8.2, bylaw 2023-15. Men's Council Committee Bylaw 2023-13. Now, we went over all of these at the committee of the whole. For those that were here, for those that weren't. Or your questions, do, whatever you want. Excellent.
I'll give you a
Motion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The council give bylaw 2023-15 to amend bylaw 2023-13. The council committee's bylaw second reading.
Excellent, thank you. Any comments? Hazel, going to you first. Any comments?
Just the one thing, Mayor Crane, we had talked about last week at the cow of possibly giving an allotment for our counselors that require childcare. Will that be also part of this, or is that going to be part of the committee discussion?
Would be part of the committee discussion.
That's gonna be committee discussion on hearing over here.
Okay, sounds good.
Excellent, all right. Any further comments? All in favor of second reading? Excellent, thank you. I'll take a number 2. Number 2 gives them a.
I will give you that council give bylaw 2023-15 final reading.
Excellent. Again, Hazel, nothing?
No, it's all good. That was the only question I had.
Excellent, thank you. Seeing none on the table, all in favor? We're at 1. Bylaw 2023-18, Council Code of Conduct bylaw. This one we went over and went over and went over and went over, and then we cross-referenced, went over again, grabbed an MGA, pulled out a copy, slapped it over the top of that, made a sandwich, put it together, burned a sentence, and said, everybody agreed.
I don't like it.
Veronica, I'll take your motion. Redo it.
First reading.
First reading. Let's have a look up on the survey says that is the correct motion. So we will take it. Hazel, I'm coming to you first for comment. Council Code of Conduct bylaw 2023-18.
It looks good to me.
Excellent. All right. Any comment on the table? Seeing none. First reading is all in favor. That's carried.
Thanks, Brenda.
I'll give you a second reading.
Okay, Hazel, go ahead.
The council give bylaw 2023-18 second reading.
Excellent, thank you. And as a maker of the motion, would you like to speak to it?
No, it's all good.
Excellent. And seeing no concerns at the table, all in favor? That is carried. I will give the council agree to present bylaw 2023-18 for the third reading at this time. Question for clarity, we have a quorum of 6. That's all that's required.
Yep.
Right, as long as it's
Quorum's
quorum.
not, as long as you've got quorum.
Yep,
you're
no,
okay.
that's good. To hear third at this time, all in favor? Excellent, thank you, Hazel. You indicated correctly. So that was unanimous, which was required. And now Cindy, I'll have it.
Yeah, that council give bylaw 2023-18 third and final reading.
Excellent, thank you. Last chance. Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried.
You want number 5?
I have 8.4 yet, and you gotta get Heather a,
No, I gotta give you number 5.
Yes, please.
oh, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yes, yes,
The council-
you should let Heather do something. I'm just kidding.
She's done so.
Just giving her a break.
She's getting there.
The council rescind Black Diamond Policy Council -012 acceptance of gifts, including its associated procedure documents.
Excellent, thank you. We also had lengthy discussion on gifts at our committee of the whole. This just cleans it all up. Any concerns? All in favor? That is carried. Okay. Now we're done now. Moving on to bylaw 2023-11 to establish a municipal library board. This is where we are, correct?
I can give you a motion for second reading.
Yes, please.
First reading.
Oh, first reading, sorry.
I thought we'd read it before. That council gives first reading to bylaw 2023-11 to establish a municipal library board.
Excellent. Hazel, any comments on this one?
No, this has been a long time coming. It's good to see this bylaw moving forward.
Yes, it is. Excellent. As you and Deputy Mayor Kelly are on that board, I'll look for you guys. If you guys are happy, then excellent. We're happy. Veronica's happy. All in favor? And that is carried. Heather?
I got one. Oh, okay, I'll give you, the council give second reading to bylaw 2023-11.
Excellent. Thank you. Any comments, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Excellent. Thank you. Veronica?
The council agreed to present bylaw 2023. The third and final reading at this meeting. I read it word for word.
Yep. Well, and just make sure it's set to present. All right, excellent. Thank you. All in favor? And that is unanimous, which is required. Thank you very much.
I'll give the next reading.
Oh, go ahead, Hazel.
That council appoint the following persons to the Town of Diamond Valley Library Board.
Number 4.
Effective April 19th, 2023 for a term expiring on October 31st, 2025. Peggy Emsley, Ian Huffman, Tracy Mills Carr, and Les Antitock.
I'm gonna back you up to number 4.
Oh,
then
dear.
take Number 5.
Okay, pardon me. That council give third and final reading to bylaw 2023-11.
You, all in favor? Carried. Now you can say ditto to what you said before.
I guess I'll say ditto to what I said before.
Excellent.
And we have a lot of our members viewing tonight, so, which is great.
Just gonna read it here for terms expiring. Peggy, Ian, Tracy, and Les. All right, excellent. Any comments from council? Seeing none, all in favor?
I'll give you the next.
And that is carried. Number 6, Deputy Mayor.
The council appoint the following persons to the Town of Diamond Valley Library Board effective April 19th, 2023 for a term expiring on October 31st, 2026. Andy Less, Wendy Portfors, John Waring, and Shay Ford. And if I may comment.
Yes, sir.
Awesome people to work with as well as the people that Hazel Martin just indicated as well. It's been a real pleasure. So for those of them viewing, keep up the great work. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Comments?
You want to comment?
Heather?
Yeah, just a comment. I like to see that there's the alternating dates, so that keeps everything great.
Absolutely. Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. I would just point out, just quickly at this time that, said mentioned people, huge thanks to you for stepping up for your community and, participating in our awesome library. And I say awesome library with the utmost respect. It is amazing. It does fantastic work for our community and surrounding area. And that is on part of the volunteers and board members who help set that direction. So thank you. And we look forward to the great things you will do for the community in the future. That being said, next we have, Cindy's gonna take it.
The council appoint Deputy Mayor Brandon Kelly and Council Hazel Martin Hughes, Town of Diamond Valley Library Board, effective April 19th, 2023, to expiring October 31st, 2023.
All in favor? All opposed? No, it's carried. It's good. Okay. Well, we have a library board, ladies and gentlemen. There we go. Finally. Okay, 8.5 procurement policy finance 003. Okay. This is really intriguing. Lead us through it for we talked about this.
Council has seen the policy procedure at the last council meeting. Decided to bring it back to this council meeting due to a few absentees at the last meeting. This is the policy that supports the procedures that are approved and signed off on by administration. This is the policy that council will approve, we're hoping, to allow us to move forward with the procedures related to this particular policy for procurement of goods and services for the municipality.
Excellent. Cindy,
I'll give you a motion that council approves procurement policy finance -003 as presented. Just to speak to it, it's super thorough. A lot of it came from the Turner Valley and then more additions. To cover everything else. More so in all the procedures that aren't attached, but there's much more for those who weren't at our last meeting. We're in good hands. Lots of checks and balances, but they can, how the money gets spent and how it gets spent, so. It's worth it.
excellent. Hazel?
No, it's all good.
All right. We have a motion on the table. Any further comment?
I have a comment.
Yep, Heather.
Is council okay with the thresholds? The purchasing thresholds
Where,
that are presented, so department managers.
Under responsibility.
DAO, shall review and authorize any purchase approved in the annual budget plan greater than 50,000, less than 200,000. For the CAO. That threshold, is council okay with that, that they don't want to see that as long as it falls within budget? I don't know.
We're gonna be operating them. Yep, everything in black has not changed.
Right.
I signed everything over 20 anyway, eyes on, so. Could say the mayor's office. Okay,
Once a contract is signed, it comes back to council to be authorized and signed, right?
It depends, I guess. Typically, council would approve the project within the capital budget. Once approved, if the project comes in within budget, then administration would tender and sign off.
Okay.
yes.
And if I may, through the chair, Councillor Johnson, we just provide an update. So when we
But we
have
would get that.
the capital report, it will provide updates on the project as well as who was selected and those sorts of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
As long as council's okay with those thresholds.
Okay. All in favor? That one is up. Proclamation policy. Oh, the council authorized the proclamations policy council 009. I'll give that one. I love proclamations.
We
You gotta stand up for them.
You still you haven't been part of
You
the
did,
show.
you did one last meeting, and you sat down.
Don't worry, I got a hat.
Okay, all right.
Next to the proclamation is mayor. I'm like, you have to say that. He's like, what? I'm like, you do. So he's like, really? I'm joking. And I'm like, you have to stand up too. So now I'm just got it.
Well, we'll add to it.
That's nice. It's nice when you do, recognizing like seniors week or something like that. It's nice to be a little, courteous.
I had a town crier suit one time.
I remember this guy.
I might get it again. All right.
We did want to establish a flourishing presentation as part of the policy, but
Absolutely.
we did fall a little short.
That's gonna be an addendum.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Personal one. Okay, all in favor for proclamations? Excellent, that's carried. And can I get a rescinder?
Yeah.
Return the sender.
Okay, that council rescind Black Diamond Policy 12-068, proclamations and letter of support in Turner Valley Proclamations Policy MPE 0402.
Okay. Rescinding.
That was easy.
All in favor? Oh,
Sorry, Heather had a question.
did you have a question? Sorry.
Just a comment.
Oh, sure.
Because we've got members of the public here, so. There's a difference between a policy and the procedures that fall behind. The policy is up to council to do, and the procedures that flow our administrations to go forward with that. Now, we did see the procurement policy procedure at the last meeting at the committee of the whole and discussed them. And the proclamations, policy, there really isn't much of a procedure that goes along with that. It's just as it is set out in the policy. So, and then when we're moving into the safety policies, same thing, the procedures are set out by and followed through by administration. So just a difference between policy setting and the procedures. Most of the time, council stays right out of procedure. Which I didn't.
Okay, thank you for the clarity, Councillor Thompson. That's good. 9.
The last meeting.
Oh, yeah,
I
that's,
read the meetings.
yeah, that's true. We were at 10:21, but then sidebar conversations lasted till 11. Next item up for business is 8.7, the health and safety policy and workplace harassment and violence prevention policy. Okay. We did go over this. We had a presentation at the COW as well. And a lot of it is straight up, straightforward. A lot of it's new legislation. You like to speak to any of it?
You got here, I don't know how you can really say unless there's really questions or anything else.
Give me a motion. Okay, I'm taking a motion from Deputy Mayor.
Okay. The council approved, excuse me, approved health and safety policy OHS-010 in accordance with OHS legislation.
Excellent, thank you. Hazel, any questions?
No, I think it's great that we have this in place for our staff. If there should ever be a chance, there is that that we do have this in place for our staff, or this policy in place to keep everybody safe, staff and public.
So 3.14. So adhere to the specific responsibilities regarding the H&S program, which we found in the H&S safety manual. Is administration planning to do a little workshop for council on this?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, Councillor Thompson. I suppose we absolutely could, yes. We have an all staff meeting on the 26th, and we will be doing that orientation around health and safety policy as well as the manual and our HR policy. And we can certainly make time to do an orientation on that, the manual and health and safety policy.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Thanks.
No, it sounds great. No,
Hazel?
question.
Good.
Good.
All right, all in favor? That is carried. Do we need a number 2? I think.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, I'll take it.
I can give you that.
Yes, please.
That council approve the workplace harassment and violence prevention policy OHS-011 in accordance with the OHS and OHS legislation.
Thank you. As maker, would you like to speak to it?
No, I think it's all good.
Thank you. Council table. Seeing none, all in favor? I saw that. Good. Excellent, thank you. And we are done that one. 8.8 human resources policy. Okay. Heather? It's got you written all over.
I can give you that. The council approved the HR policy HR-012 as presented.
Excellent, thank you. As the maker, any words?
Yeah, so this will be a kind of a document in progress, right? Because there's lots of other stuff that's gonna have to be coming into this. other policies and stuff that'll start. Or not policies, but the manual will be. Cause if I recall, like we talked about. Like we're only. The policy. And that's out of our hands. That's the CAO's deal, right? The procedures. But is there, like for staff, will that kind of be ongoing for them? So to keep them updated and.
If I might, through Mayor Crane. So we will have to probably go back and rescind a few policies as part of this process.
That's my, yeah.
Just because we do have them scattered a little bit to those municipalities. But our goal with this is to get the policy approved so that I can sign off on the manual. So that next Wednesday at our all staff meeting, that manual can be presented to all the staff along with the health and safety and workplace.
Great.
Programs that we just approved the policies for. So you've already seen the draft of it. We've tweaked it a little bit. As Middleton and I will be working through some of the rough edges over the next couple of days. And we'll get that policy in place so that we have a brand new platform for the new municipal staff to work from.
Okay. All righty. Satisfied? All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And I'll give the council rescind the town of Black Diamond HR policy and the town of Herndon Valley HR policy number MP.F.01-15, sorry, and human resources and health. That's just a straightforward exercise. So all in favor? Thank you. That is carried.
Mayor Crane, can I just make just a little comment?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Under the health and safety policy, we use the word managers, whereas under the HR policy, we use the word department head. Could we do it kind of consistency that we use managers or department heads? It's just a minor comment. Item 3.4 says department heads under the HR policy.
We can just adjust on with.
Yeah, I think it's just wording.
Yeah.
But you can't the intent of the policy whatsoever.
We will do that.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good. Good catch. All right. And that one is checked. Right, no further.
Change that to safety.
All right.
Action time.
Action time. There you go. Appointment of Chief Administrative Officer. Well. Let's have a look. Do I have recommendations? I have someone in mind. Deputy Mayor, why don't you give it to us?
Oh, yeah, I can certainly do that. Pull it up. I already tucked my paper stuff away here, but I have it right here. Okay. The council appoints Corinne Middleton as the Chief Administrative Officer for the town of Diamond Valley, effective May 1st, 2023. And as the mayor, I'm very excited to have her on board. I say less. Yeah, like I'm really excited, Grant, to be working with you. Very sad to see Sean go, but I'm also very happy for the next chapter of his life as well. And I'm excited to be working with you for hopefully the coming years. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll speak to the motion as well. I think you, with the organization, tremendous amount of time and effort that you put into this organization and the nomination of the two. You are well suited for it. On the same motion, John, you have been here for 2 years in the thick and thin battlegrounds, and no small feat, absolutely, for your tenure. And I think huge kudos to you, moving on to your next position. They're gonna be well served by having you, but we're very excited to have Ms. Middleton coming on board and leaving the charge as well. So, great transition. I don't think there's ever been a better transition, to be honest with you.
No.
Yes, Turner Valley councillors have been through 4 CAOs. So we've been through some thick and thin battles. For Deputy Mayor Kelly and Veronica, you've got a little taste to change, but I think Karen's gonna bring some great change, so it's gonna be good. All right.
If I might, Mr.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do think you're in very good hands. She's been an excellent manager, she'll be an excellent CEO. I also want to take the opportunity to thank my staff. You have been absolutely bloody incredible. Because this has been a real toll. Uphill, with a lot of train cars behind us. And it has been difficult, it's been hard on the soul, and it's worn a lot of good people out, but I said it before, I would never have, it could never have taken the journey with a better group of people. Very proud of all of them, very happy to say that I've had the opportunity to work with them. And I've had the opportunity to work with you as a council. You have treated me nothing but respect, and I could have asked for nothing more. So I give you my deepest appreciation, and I absolutely wish you all the best.
Can't ask for a better send off for a vote on that. Fantastic. Thank you, Sean, for those kind words.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thanks, Sean. All in favor? And that is carried.
Going up for John too, right?
Yeah, put it in. That's a good job there. Okay, that one is off the books as well. Appointment of assessor for the town of Diamond Valley. Looks like I'm gonna ask the incoming CAO. Thoughts on the assessor? All of it?
Yeah, to just address your question, Mayor Crane, this is just really requirement through the MGA. Doug has been our assessor for a number of years. He's familiar with both communities. So this is just part of a regulatory requirement that we have to appoint an assessor. And so administration is recommending that we appoint Doug for the period January 2023 to 2027.
Excellent, thank you. Go ahead, Cindy.
Yeah, I can make the motion that council appoint Douglas B. Jensen, AMAA, as the municipal assessor to the town of Diamond Valley to provide assessment services for the time period January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2027. I just wanted to ask a question about the agreement. There was one instance in the last council that a large change was made on one of our properties. That we didn't really know, but it actually had a big effect on our taxes. Is there anything in this, I couldn't see anything in the agreement say, that he would let us know if there's, a material change or what that material change might be. Is there, does that normally happen anyways? I don't know if you remember, I think it was with our golf course, if you remember that situation. Yeah. Because it had a big impact on our, when $30,000 is a 1% tax increase, and I think it changed by like 20,000 or something in 1 year. I'm not sure the change. Is there some sort of reporting mechanism, I guess, is my thing. Like, he does his job and he just comes quietly and goes quietly year after year, but what's when something big happens like that?
So to address your question, so I don't believe he has an obligation really, but he's audited. So every year he is required to send information to the government, and he has been audited through the town of Turner Valley. So his role is really to establish some reasonableness, and we have had some properties this year that have gone up considerably. And it really kind of is the obligation of the individual that owns the property or the business to come forward and state, whether they disagree or agree. And from our town's perspective, I don't believe we have a lot of leverage in how he determines the property assessed values.
Yeah, it's more just, oh, sorry, just more just reporting when it's something that, because nobody's gonna complain when their assessment gets better, when it gets more favorable for them, they're talking, you know. But for us, when we're budgeting and we've got a goals, you know, to explain, to just for us to know, because there's like, between the two towns now, we have 2,000 properties, so we're not gonna be comparing year over year. It's got that information.
Yeah, and I think that's a valid point. The individual who's currently doing that role is fantastic. And she is extremely aware of those big increases or decreases. We have conversation about it all the time. And we're running the numbers and putting them through every time we have a change in the assessed values, because we are still going through that process. And so she is keeping me very much current on any of those big changes. And so I think some of that is just overall staffing competency. So someone being familiar and understanding taxes, and she's great. So I don't see us having any of those sorts of issues this year. Like I said, we're constantly looking at the information. Perfect.
So Ms. Middleton will ensure that you're aware of any assessment adjustments on an overall scenario. But it wouldn't be commonplace to bring us a single assessment into the public forum at a council meeting or a budget meeting. While the assessment role is open to the public under certain conditions, it would be very uncommon to specifically bring one assessment forward in a public forum. But I'm sure she will keep you well informed of any significant adjustments in the assessment rules.
Heather.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're kind of thinking, could we have had a heads up that there was gonna be a 12% assessment increase on this year, because it was kind of shocking to a lot of people. And I think it was kind of province wide, and it was based on those high house sales, high priced house sales that happened everywhere in Alberta. But I don't think that he can give you that final line, what the increase is until he finishes it. Usually February. Yeah. He can say there's gonna be an increase. Assessments are gonna go up, but he can say assessments are gonna go down, but he won't give you a hard line number, which is unfortunate, but that's the way it goes. And that was across Alberta, that 12%. I probably a lot of people have. It's yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think this year it kind of hit social media before I actually was. Because I didn't go check my mails for weeks and then all of a sudden we're hearing about it too. So it's probably good to keep council, like as soon as we know from the assessment. I think we have in years past, you guys have just been busy this year. To heads up, you're gonna get a lot of phone calls.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm glad
Your
my property's worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's good. It has a side effect, but it, you know, if your house went up 40 grand every year. That's a pretty darn good investment. Yeah. Yeah, it does come with potentially some extra taxation, but I take that trade every year.
Okay. Do we have a motion on it?
It's on, yeah.
Already did.
Yes, you did. Seeing nothing further, all in favor? Excellent, thank you. 9.3, Sheep River Health Trust, 2023, request for sponsorship. Which one do you want?
Starts at 2,500 and goes down to 250.
Heather Scott first.
Yeah, I support the $500, being a community, community builder. That's what I believe that's what we did last year. So I'm good with that. Now I have a question about the policy and where we stand with that, but I'd still like, when is the telethon? So June 22nd. Where do we stand with that policy?
We don't have one as of right now, is that correct?
Right, through the mayor. Thank you, Councilor Thompson. Currently, there are three policies that are between Black Diamond and Turner Valley that we're trying to consolidate. So it's certainly a work in progress. I expect that by the next meeting, council will have an opportunity to be able to review it unless there's a CW meeting prior to that or further discussion. I'm not sure if that was scheduled or not, but I would like to have that open conversation because there's a lot of moving parts to this. And the deeper I dig and speak with other communities, the more I am inclined to take a look at different levels. So somewhere it's similar to the community and corporate support, such as these that are presented, and others where it's a little bit more robust. And we have groups that are asking potentially to have their events funded, in excess of $10,000. So those are on a very different plane. We've already had a few of them. One in particular where there's the potential for that, and another one that will be coming through, I believe, the first meeting in May. So we don't really have a mechanism within the existing policies that they're blended to be able to accommodate or review fairly those types of requests. And I just find now that there's more research that's required, so I'm still hoping that it's going to that meeting.
Thank you, Monique. I just, is there a budget that we can do the $500 from now in this one? Because this coming up, we're doing the 22nd and these people do a lot of work for our hospital and.
Let's see what we got in the budget. Because we still have something in there, it's just we move that policy. The direct motion is direct motion, it's simple as that. Hazel, go ahead.
Just for me, we have put on a pause for the Sheep River Library's 40th anniversary. Their request was also $500. So can we maybe just put this request on pause as well until Monique can bring us back more information?
I'd like to put the motion forward. When is the library event?
Is April 29th.
Let me speak to the mayor. That's right. When this was decided, because we were still voting the policies, the council had agreed to pause until there was a revised policy to look at. Administration admittedly has been behind in terms of being able to present that to you. But in the meantime, there have been some that have gone through, I believe, out of council budget. So I don't know if there's really a recommendation, but it would be unfair at this point to not consider the Sheep River Library at the same time. And it had put through for $500 as well.
Yes, go ahead, Veronica.
Did the Sheep River Health Trust receive 500 from each community, Turner Valley and Black Diamond?
No, I don't think so. Oh, they did.
Yeah, we usually give it and you guys give.
Turner Valley certainly submitted $500. I think Black Diamond did as well.
I didn't have any phone.
They're going to produce a big half of what they usually do from this area. Is that a cost saving of evaluation or how we want to spend that one?
Indeed it is. Councilor Martin, to address your concern around the library, I totally understand where you're coming from in terms of, the precedent setting. There was some other financial numbers that were involved that we weighed the options on when making that determination last time as well. I think that's why that went the other way.
No, it was just because the policy wasn't ready. We'd had discussion.
Okay. Okay. Cindy has a question.
For this one, like I get that we have a policy for things like the library that are these one-off events and things, but it seems like this is one that's come every single year. And we always do it. Isn't that just at that point a regular budget item versus like I guess this is transparent in some ways, but it's also really repetitive
year after year and more work for you guys.
Nick?
Through the chair. Yes, and I appreciate that comment, Councillor Holiday. However, the reason for the corporate support fund initially was to make it exactly that, transparent. It was in the public view in terms of what was being supported, because after all, these are taxpayer dollars that are being donated to specific causes or projects. And I felt at that time when it was first proposed that it was important that that be brought to the public forum. And this doesn't just cover these types of requests, it's everything from golf tournaments, for example. Any kind of charity golf tournaments should also go through scrutiny as well.
Ms. Middleton, where would we get $500 if we did want to make a motion?
Oh. I mean, through the chair, Mayor, I believe that we've consolidated 2 budgets from last year. I have not taken anything of significance out of those line items where we would normally be providing some sort of corporate community support. So I would expect that monies would come from the same line items that they've come from in past years.
Well, can we approve both tonight, even though it's not on the RFD? So I would put forward a motion that council approve the Sheep River Health Trust request for funding in the amount of $500 in support of the organizations Together We Make a Difference Radiothon fundraising initiative. And then I could put, maybe Hazel could put one forward for the library.
Well, it's not on the agenda tonight. The events in a week. This is on the agenda. I think we address this one.
Sure.
Because we're gonna cycle back. There's that bigger conversation with the library. Some of it can't be talked with the public, and that's why I kind of preface it the way I did.
Okay.
Be for conversation.
All right. Thank you.
So let's just address this one and then.
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, comments, motion on the table, Hazel. The support for 500 for this one.
I think we have to be fair, we have 2 requests that have come forward, and I believe we have to be fair and treat them equally. I mean, we had a hockey one come, and that one went through, we used advertising for that to be able to support their cause.
Thank you. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, it's June 22nd. There's no deadline, I'm sure, for them taking money from us. So,
Couldn't find any.
yeah, so if Ms. Wong says that she'll have it, sometime in May, there's still time. So I don't think we need to make it tonight. And I think there is a difference in the larger conversation because we already support the library through requisitions in a very large amount every year. That there's a way bigger conversation on that. So I don't want to go into that tonight. It's not on the agenda. But this, I think I would prefer just to postpone it because we have them postponing all of them and we shouldn't be making exceptions. And the report's coming, and whether we get the 60-second ad or not, and because we're late, but they're going to take our money, they're going to use it for a good cause. It'll happen. So I'd suggest.
I'll take my motion off the table.
Okay, we're going to postpone tables for later in the meeting. We're going to postpone this one.
I'll defer it.
Defer, that's the word I was looking for. Defer to a end of May.
Second
First of
meeting in
June.
May.
First meeting in June. That gives them all up there.
Yeah, the second meeting today.
Give them these.
Thank you.
9.4, 2022. Is that the last end?
Yeah.
Financial reporting.
Did you vote on that? We just make it.
No, we just deferred it to June.
Was that not a motion?
That's a motion to.
Oh, yeah, we need to.
Okay. Defer till June by Heather.
May, the second meeting in May.
Sure, thank you.
Sure. Okay. Yep, all in favor?
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, Abel. Okay, West End financial reporting, 9.4. We'll get there, Greg, don't you go to sleep.
It's.
I just thought of a question.
If his report is like, things are going good, I'm just.
I thought we were not gonna take us page to page.
Absolutely not.
Please.
Okay, here we go, West End
Just trying to.
Food Service Commission. Take it away, who wants it?
No.
Nobody. Heather?
Council, except for information purposes, the West Bend Regional Sewage Services Commission 2022 audited financial statements and 2022 financial information returns as presented.
Excellent. Any questions, anyone want to crunch numbers?
No, but I did have one question.
Right.
Number 13, commitments. The notes, the commission has an agreement with MP Engineering to provide engineering services. The agreement has no end date and will run for the foreseeable future. We just saw our procurement policy. It's not in there. There's some procedures, I think, that we do 3 to 5 year terms. Does the commission have to follow? They're just totally.
They're
separate.
I thought that might be the case, but
So we need to take that for us then.
yeah, yeah, you would think that we follow our town's procurement policy. Okay.
Yeah, let's go to Berna now.
If I could, so previous to January 1st, we had 2 different towns with 2 different procurement policies, and a commission is made up of member municipalities. So you would not, under normal circumstances, follow a town's policy. It is something we've kind of started to do as we created new things, but we couldn't do that previously. That contract has an undated termination of when the lagoon project is up, then it could be retendered just to encompass regular engineering services. But yeah, there's things in that will come to an end. I promise eventually they'll come to an end.
Thank you. I'm good.
All right. Motion on the floor. All in favor? Trust me, there's more to follow on that financial report in the year 2023. It'll be exciting then. Okay, finally, we got here. CAO staff reports. Okay, Mr. Patience. Yeah, all yours. Give us a high overview.
Keep a lot of it.
Don't have any questions for the, on the CAO report.
Hazel, I know you do.
Nope,
Nothing.
not on the CAA report, CAO report.
On any reports?
Just maybe my next report.
Okay, fire away.
Minik has a lot of stuff. Her CPOs are going to be very busy. It's great to see them so active in the community. Are we planning any festivities for Canada Day or for the summer games?
On there.
Thank you for the question. Yes, through the mayor. Councillor Martin, we are, it's not official as yet, but it would appear that Canada Day festivities will not be going forward. We just don't have the capacity at the moment to be able to do that. There would be back-to-back events. We have a number of things that are going on in the summer games. As far as the events, we're certainly hosting it. There have been tentative plans to present a concert, but that also doesn't really have any budget attached to it, and we're running out of time. So we are meeting with the organizing committee next week, or no, I'm sorry, early May, to take a look at some other options. We will do something to kick it off. We're hoping that through the skateboard opening, that would be one of the lead events, whereby it'll be a community celebration. And we'll have essentially a bit of a test race, if you will, for the mountain bike track as well. So that's part of what we're planning, and then we'll build some activities around that. But otherwise, no, there are no plans for Canada Day, other than, of course, fireworks. And what we are hoping to do, and we've mentioned it to the Chamber of Commerce, is to have a business driven type of event where hopefully we can attract more visitors to the downtown core and to the merchants in both former Turner Valley and former Black Diamond downtown districts.
Thank you very much, Manette. I know you folks have been super busy and you have a lot on your plate.
Question, 2. You've got Diamond Valley Parade, what about Diamond Valley Days? Is it all part and parcel? Is it two into one?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Crane. That falls also under my responsibilities. And what we managed to do is we named it Diamond Valley Parade Day. Just, we wanted to make sure that the name parade was there because it's such an important part of the event. You know, in the past, we certainly will continue to be. I'm very, very pleased to announce that we have struck a partnership with the former Boys and Girls Club, which is now called UGC Foothills, and they will be taking over and have taken over the organization of the parade portion of it. Additionally, we're working with all of the various partners, including the Foothills Lions Club, the Leos, the high school, and various other organizations. We will be starting off with a pancake breakfast at the school, so those events are still in play. And now we're just reaching out to other organizations trying to backfill where needed.
Sorry,
So you'll notice on the website that now parade registrations are open as well as market registrations for what was formerly Turner Valley side of the festivities. All of the suppliers are booked and now we're doing volunteer recruitment as well as sponsorship.
Excellent. Fantastic. I put in my notes for my Facebook Live to call to volunteers for that, so.
That'd be fantastic.
I ran that in time today, so it's first on my docket tomorrow. The other thing I want to just mention that's not on here is our branding launch. We don't have a specific date here,
No.
and that's really,
There will be a pre-launch reveal session to staff and also to the stakeholders. We had approximately 25 that had contributed, and those are the ones that were interviewed us directly. And then I think there were over 400 survey results that came in. So those two particular groups will, including council and the EDC, will have the reveal and full story on April 26th. And then we expect to go live whereby we have packages of information that'll be sent out along with the brand guidelines to all the media outlets and our key partners, along with any information. So that is in the works, nearing completion, and we look forward to the launch on the 26th.
Very.
Oh, great.
So the launch, but has like, you've got all letterhead and all that stuff ordered and ready to go for launch time?
Most, but not all. So we're definitely still behind in certain things. Luckily for letterhead, we're able to create that in-house where needed. We very rarely actually use it, but we will get a supply, you know, where it's somewhat embossed, if you will, or printed. We have business cards. I mean, the list is like flags. The flags are coming in soon. The one big outstanding is going to be the entrance signs. Those are quite big, huge, and also to determine site maps. So which ones do we actually need? Which ones need to be replaced? Which ones do we eliminate completely? And we're working really closely with Craig to be able to determine all of that and get some pricing. So you'll see a little bit more about that in the capital budget discussions. But they will probably be several months away because of the design that's involved.
I wouldn't expect that they'd be.
So, yeah, the full rollout would be, we were hoping that the full rollout would be completed in 6 months, including the website, but things just take longer than what had been anticipated. And a lot of it is dependent on suppliers, not just shipping times, but the work, for example, that's required in back end of the website to be able to complete that. We've done what we can internally. You've likely seen that, and hopefully some of the information is getting a lot easier to find and it's laid out differently, but we're certainly not finished that yet.
Yes.
excellent.
Good, thank you.
Can we get an invite sent out for 26th for that one?
Yeah, that's happening tomorrow morning. I just approved.
Perfect, excellent. Mayor.
Yeah, I just have a question. We received a great letter from Chet Musgrove
Yes.
from the high school in regards to our CPOs, which is fantastic. really appreciate all the support that the CPOs are giving to the school. Obviously, it's great. We commemorated Simon tonight. My only kind of speed bump here is how much responsibility falls on the town for being in the school, and how much should Foothill School Division be looking at that as well? Because I don't see our CPO officers really in a lot of other places. They've got a big commitment down in Longview. I see them there doing the speed stuff. I don't see them like in terms of enforcement elsewhere in town. I just haven't seen that. So I'm just wondering how much we're giving to the high school, and if that's taking away from potentially some other areas of town.
Yeah. Could I add
Yeah.
further to that? I've heard residents comment about the amount of time that the CPOs are at the school. So.
It's a tricky one.
It's gotta be a balance, right? You know, like I get that that's a really great place for them to be, but I've heard.
Thank you for the questions. I'll try and break this down through the chair. So to begin with regard to any commitment, this has been a program that was established in cooperation with the school, requesting their assistance because they found that with their presence, and it's really on the education side and support as opposed to any kind of enforcement, but they've noticed that, you know, the incidents of vandalism and just behavior in general has improved. And the parents have requested it and also complimented them now, is that, you know, in terms of the amount of time, it's balanced. It's certainly not a priority and over and above other bylaws or traffic violations, for example, or traffic control that's required. Longview is an inherited contract that came from the former town of Black Diamond, whereby we're providing 16 hours a week to them, and currently that is financially benefiting the town of Diamond Valley, absolutely. But it's under review and will be looked at, you know, as we continue forward. But right now, I believe it's a 3-year agreement. So that commitment is continuing. As far as the rest of the, from what I can see in terms of files, it's looking like they're certainly not going down. So there's definitely a response to them. We've streamlined our process so that it's much easier to also reach somebody. And I think those are some of the things that maybe people aren't realizing, because there's sometimes a lot of bylaw work that happens over the phone. And then also the door knocking. So my files show that they're very active in other areas. They've also presented, again, community educational piece to the seniors at both centers. They look for opportunities. They've been actively involved with the COP group. All of those things do help. And then on top of that, it continues with traffic control and violent enforcement.
Thanks, Monique. Just one more thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that, you know, like, the Foothill School Board, though, you know, if this is really benefiting, that they should be contributing to this. And I mean, I guess that's discussions when we go into the joint agreements and stuff for that, but just so that you got that in your.
Thank you, and through the mayor, absolutely. This is something that's been discussed, but again, there's no obligation on their part because this was done voluntarily on our behalf at the request of, though, right? I mean, it's something that's part of the CPO work plan is to develop and expand community programming to be there front facing and available. Not just tonight or not just in schools. Nevertheless, though, if it's perceived that way, then it's unfortunate in some ways. In other ways, at least they're being noticed, and hopefully it is seeing some positive results. But for the rest of it, it would be a discussion with Foothills, and it's through the school that would take place, because we certainly are not providing them with a resource officer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Hazel.
Just a comment for Verna. I'm seeing a message on the screen that says 9:59 PM. Recording has stopped. I don't know if that is affecting anything.
And the recording.
Right.
Same time.
No, I think it's.
I swear to something.
It's two events. They got so stuff.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna neti pot council from now on.
Yeah, it says so.
Right after.
Vernon, are you good?
I think you're good. I always book the meeting till 11 anyways.
Looks like we're good, Hazel, but
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
And just one last comment, just a huge thank you to Craig for putting together the RFP for the shade sails for the spray park. Really looking forward to getting those put up this year.
He's like, sweet, I stuck around here for 2 hours.
Okay, do you have a question, Mr. Craig? Excellent, go ahead.
Oh, spent the last 3 hours thinking of. Oh. The skate park. I understand is there a concern that it's going to be sloughing? Is it gonna fall apart? Is it structurally sound?
Are we packing in some clay?
What are we
Through the chair. Councillor Clover, that's a Bates question. I don't know if you're aware, but we closed the skate park this week. And took advantage of some really weather, nice weather opportunities to pack in all kinds of new material. Dump trucks have been coming and going all week, and we've been packing in material, grading out the slopes so that if kids miscalculate their ramp runs, they're not dropping 6 feet onto flat ground on the other side. We did notice that some of the material from underneath the deck would start to slough out. So yes, we are tapering it out so that it's A, safer, B, easier to maintain with mowers, so that we're not doing all that work on hand. And also to ensure that the structure is stable and sound.
I have a follow-up question to ask.
Absolutely.
Do you believe there will be enough time to complete that work for the grand opening on June 10th?
Yes.
That's wonderful.
It should be done this week as far as grading goes. We will be spreading topsoil immediately after. We've encountered a little bit of topsoil issue. That's still working. So we have been able to scrape some material out. We will be spreading soil. My biggest concern currently is, and this is a topic that I first to bring up at a later date. Not that much later. Actually, very soon.
Actually, right now.
So with not just the grand opening, but with the Alberta Summer Games coming our way and that being the primary staging area, we've actually been doing a lot of work, not just in the skate park, but I don't know if any of you have been behind the recreation center or the arena. There was spoil piled or something all over the place. There's rocks, that's all done. We've cleaned all that up. We've dragged all the rocks out. We flattened the area. We've removed debris that was piled behind the arena. We've just been doing a ton of work this week. The guys are just busting their butts. And my biggest concern currently is we can seed that soil. That seed is not going to grow, nor is it going to be knit in time for the Alberta Summer Games. So there will be a request coming from the very near future for some funding for some sod and some other materials to enhance and beautify or just kind of complete the finish.
Topiaries and such.
Furniture, garbage cans in particular, there is definitely a shortage of waste receptacles. Some gravel for greenway parking. List goes on. Okay. You have more?
Brandon wants one
Don't
first.
forget about this question.
He wants it. Brandon, go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's just a quick one, and you may not know the answer to this, Craig, not your fault, it should be on the Black Diamond side for sure. But when we approved the skate park, I kind of assumed that the landscaping would be included in that. But to find out that Public Works now is spending town time there, kind of red flag for me. So was this a responsibility, to your knowledge, of the skate park people, or were they just strictly come in, bulldoze put the cement in and walk away?
Through the chair, Councillor Kelly, I honestly can't speak confidently to what the expectation
Okay.
or final product was. I do understand in speaking with Les briefly that initially Parks Department was going to finish off the landscaping at that site this spring. So I'm not aware of any associated budget. I understand that Les did have a deficit in that area for the budget. As we were just doing it because we own the equipment and the manpower. And to date, the materials brought in, we have in abundance at our own area. So we've been able to use our own equipment, our manpower, and the materials that are coming in internally to date. But solid gravels, we and furnishings, we would not.
Absolutely.
Some additional.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I just want to tell you, like on the Easter weekend, I was down there. You should have seen the kids on that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was incredible. And it was all Easter weekend because we went down there with the kids and everything. And I have never seen the old one have even an eighth of the amount of kids on it. So it's a real good addition to back there. And so I really appreciate you going forward and getting it cleaned up and fixed up then, because the kids love it.
I drove by yesterday with all the closed signs and the kids were all over it.
Oh, yeah.
My daughter's like, where are those signs? I'm like, that's closed. And she's like, but those, I'm like, don't worry about it. It's fine. I mean, it's fine.
We're not concerned about them being there after hours. We don't want them there while we're operating.
Yeah.
It's safer now with the conditions than it was Easter week.
Oh, wow. I mean, the kids on it, it was incredible. I mean, kids, like, right up to teenagers, and they were all getting along so good, and the teenagers were helping the little ones, and it was just awesome.
Don't forget about Veronica.
Back over to Veronica.
So yeah, tomorrow I will go walk my dogs, check your work in the arena. But speaking of dogs, did you know that April is Dog Thanksgiving Month? Nationally, it is, according to the internet. So I was just wondering, it's probably not your department, but who is the plan to clean up the dog park? April's leavings.
Through the chair, Councillor Clover, the dog park is. I traditionally, there's been a volunteer group that's always, and I think that's been self-governed. That's not something that Parks has, or in its future, I don't think Parks wants to participate in. So I think it's best left to the very helpful and friendly volunteers of.
Well, I would think that you might to publicly thank them in the council meeting.
But to expand on that, I do have some plans around some change in the maintenance of that space moving into the future. And also to expand on that is Turner Valley Council had originally approved the installation and construction of the off-leash dog park in Turner Valley side, which we will commence as soon as the ground is thawed, as we surely will be too.
Hey, some more questions?
That was it. That was the best one.
You got one and I got one. Okay. Here we go.
So I'm just wondering, I'm a little confused because Parks takes care of a bunch of building maintenance, but I see on the next thing that she's got building maintenance for the rink, which I can understand her having programming, but not so much maintenance. I'm sure there's a conversation. Maybe it's not a good one. If you just want to say, don't have it, we don't want to talk about it. That's fine.
No.
That's some discussions. We're gonna have.
So, Councillor Holiday, so Parks Parks is building maintenance, so we take care of the envelope of all the facilities. And there is a kind of a variation between operation of a facility and the envelope of the facility. So, for example, the pool, the building, or let's use the fire hall. Fire hall, we own the building, but we don't run building maintenance, doesn't run the operation. So when the fire hall has an issue, the furnaces, the roof, eavesdrops, window doors, whatever it is on the envelope of that building maintenance comes in and does that maintenance repair. And if need be, capital will be somewhere else to 20%. Libraries are similar. Basically, the landlord of that building, we own it. We maintain the function of that building. When it comes to the operation of the building, that's independent. And in this scenario with the arena, it's specialized, such as the pool, it's specialized. So the building itself is ours to maintain through parks or through building maintenance. But the operation and the specialized equipment to operate that facility for what it's intended for is still arena. They're the subject matter experts on maintaining the refrigeration system, the hot drink boards, so on and so forth. Now, there is a little bit of leeway or some grace period given because Les and their team have operated that facility for decades, and to come in one foul swoop and take over all that, it is also really the intent of our approach. We're more of a support in that regard for maintaining. Did I answer you?
Yeah, that did. So when it comes to the upgrade project, that's actually going to be under you, not you. Yeah, these are the discussions, if I may, these are the discussions we're having. I mean, certainly from a technical aspect, somebody like Craig who has that level of expertise and, available special services. It's really good to have him involved in this project. I think it has to be collaborative. And at this point, we're still working some of that out. So we're not doing it in isolation by any means. However, it was started through that Black Diamond and it was carried over that way. And so we have to respect the work that's been done previously. And some of it is fairly well advanced. So that's where we're having to pause a little bit, take another look, make sure that it's going to be aligned with what works for facilities.
There you go. Okay, last one. Quick one. Oh, Heather, go ahead.
I'm really, the oil fields arena maintenance. I've heard about some of this stuff, but there's one thing missing that I've heard about for quite a long time. Have the showers been fixed in the dressing rooms?
Same.
At the arena.
And the one, look at it, check it out.
I'm not even toured that building, to be quite honest with you.
So there's been a bunch of maintenance done. So the rubber matting, that was one of the things that came to my attention that was worn out and stuff. So any chance you can check in to see if those showers have been fixed? I think they've been broken for about 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I can ask for less. Again, that's one of those areas that my department has treaded extremely lightly with. Just because it is not really something that we
I just, if you can just ask.
Yeah.
I get it. It is one thing that brought to my attention quite often.
You think one,
Yeah.
two,
I gotta use them.
you got another one?
No, he says he has to use them.
Yeah, I use the showers, but
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
a line of guys standing there, there's only 2 of the 4 work.
Miss LeBlanc, question for you for campground. You're in charge of campground again, I know.
Yes, I am.
The wood sales that come out of the campground, there's been, I don't know if you've been privy to this, but it came up about Leo's potentially
Yes.
selling wood.
Sure, I'd like to address it.
Yeah.
So,
Please do.
that was a bit of a surprise. So that discussion happened without any formalization on my part. So I just found out about it today that it actually became a topic on the Leo's Reliance Club, meeting, and I apologize for that, because typically we would present that in a lot more detail as opposed to just throwing an idea at the president and then having him take it forward. So, that's not usually the level of professionalism that we like to display publicly. However, the idea behind it wasn't a bad one. And it was, we know that with the campground, seems every year we change up the operations somewhat. And because we have staff that would be available to assist during regular hours, they are able to maintain some of the operational side of it. But part of that still in the evenings is wood sales. And when we had a campground host, which is not, we think, not required, we're looking for somebody seasonal, already employed, that's coming in to be able to assist with that on modified shifts. And so with the wood, what's happened is that we were buying from the Wood King and reselling because it was bundled, as opposed to the campground host having to lug that, you know, herself and be able to deal with that. So it was just a much more convenient way of managing sales. Prior to that, prior to having a host, and remember, we've tried all kinds of different combinations because COVID really affected it as well. But prior to that, we had a local contractor that would supply wood and go around and sell. So there was nothing involved in terms of any buy-sell kind of relationship with the town. But now we have, we recover those costs between them sell and that's done through the campground host. There was an idea that with the recent donation of all the wood from TC Energy, which is, I understand, supplied for many, many years, that the Leos may be interested in looking at that as a fundraiser, and they would be able to potentially sell firewood on their behalf. And potentially they would be able to supply, sell, keep the profits, and it would be a fundraiser for them. So we are always looking to work with the local organizations that, you know, if we can support them, that would be fine. So I don't think the idea is a bad one. I just regret that it wasn't fully vetted and went there without fully being really spoken about or, you know, that our position and our ask wasn't clear. So that's where it's at.
Good. I think there is a good conversation. We've got probably 80 cords of wood over there in downtown. Endless supply, really. So, you know, they could bundle it, sell it at a cost even better than, you know. So anyway, conversation for later, but I want to address it because I was asked to address it and see if there was anything that was actually important. So thank you. Okay, I'm taking a motion right now. Hazel, give it to me, except for information.
You should watch it. And when she raises her hands.
On mute.
No, that's why I said just read it. You're muted, so.
I motion that we accept the staff reports as information. Should I list all of them or just?
No, you're good. John just got one comment and then we're gonna vote.
I just wanted to let you know that yesterday I received Mr. Rope's resignation as our Director of Emergency Management.
Okay.
Effective May the 3rd, so we'll be working with Corinne to fill that in. We do have multiple dams in the municipality, and the new fire chief, one of their responsibilities will be either to fill that role or to delegate that role. So just so we're aware. I will also say Mr. Rick has been the best DM I have ever worked with.
Yeah, pretty exceptional. Absolutely. So, yeah, thank you, Karen. Maybe we'll send them some flowers next. Tell you what you said, send Queen Bee, a little tiny box. Goes to the hive. Okay. Just saying, no. We'll be sure to send them. Thank you, Karen. All those kudos. So, thank you for the information. Motion on the table. All in favor? Excellent. Thank you. Greg can go. Nick can go. Run away while you can. Can I actually maybe just suggest that we have staff reports into right behind delegations, delegation decisions, almost like right there. Unless we need them for bylaw, but if we can get the staff reports out of the way early, like Rod, we can send you guys off.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to sit through all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roughly like.
Fine. We'll We'll make sure,
Like it,
be,
it's like
get
to make
Myrna,
it
we'll adjust that accordingly when times come. Okay, excellent. Can I get a motion for your amendment? Thank you. All in favor? Oh, you want to talk to it?
Well,
Yeah, WCB Day Morning and Town of Schofield.
they're mine on final, but I think to actually worked
Town of Schofield.
the town of Schofield and the other towns that are kind of protesting against it, because newspaper is biodegradable and it degrades pretty quickly versus plastic. And, you know, plastic and styrofoam and stuff, and I don't know that I agree with them putting this cost onto newspapers, you know.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
I've been using the newspaper as compost bag. So I agree. Let's send a letter.
Yeah, so I'd like a different motion for this, if we can get a letter of support.
Okay, I'll take a motion to accept WCB Day Morning for information. Got that from there. All in favor? Excellent. And now, go ahead, Heather.
That a letter, be sent, in support of, exempting the newspaper industry from the, EPR program.
Plain and simple, modeled after Tofield's.
Yeah.
Outreach.
Okay. Let us be outreach. All in favor? Voting yes. Great, yes, perfect, excellent. Okay, done is done. Motion on close. Take a little tiny break.
Usually think it's just.
Like a 3 minute, yeah. We'll take a 3 minute stretch of legs. Okay, we're reconvened. Thank you. Can I get a motion to go into camera?
Give it to us.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. We're going to move into closed session for those of you viewing online. There'll be no motions coming out of our closed session, just in case you're wondering. So essentially, we'll be done in 15 minutes and it'll just be an adjournment when we come back. So,
Close the electronic meeting off then?
yes, please.